Chapter 1343. Along the way, the netherworld was visibly in chaos. The road to the underworld had been cut off. Countless souls were floating in the river Styx, muddle-headed all the way to Samsara. Occasionally, there were lonely souls and wild ghosts who were lucky enough to break free, wandering in the een soil of the netherworld. Yuta City, on the other side of the bridge of helplessness, had been broken, but the netherworld had not yet been affected. However, Yuta City had been broken. Those evil things trapped in the darkness would sooner or later wreak havoc here. When that time came, the netherworld would become a bizarre land of death. Apart from Dara, who could come and go as he pleased, even gold immortals and primordial immortals would be in danger. Yuan Yu already knew that if he and his team had not fallen into River Styx's trap, they would not have been able to escape. Not to mention the Shui, Tu King, Ajadi, Reverend Fajing, the group of fiendish cultivators, Buddhists, and righteous Tao lords, even a deputy sect master like him, as well as Imperial Emperor Ziyang, Tao Lord Corpse Demon, Dara of the Dragon Race, and the nameless old monk like Dara, could forget about leaving the ruins of End alive. The terror hidden in the ultimate was truly indescribable. Rose demon ancestors, final enlightenment. The great Tao returns to the void, the end of time, hiding the third demon ancestor of the demonic path, the evil demon ancestor Ketu, the great darkness sky. The demon ancestor who imprisoned River Styx attempted to redefine Dara and created something that possessed the power of Dara but did not have the innate, inextinguishable divine aura and was not recognized by the great Tao. There was also the primordial evil being created by River Styx's experiments, creating a forbidden species that was not tolerated by great mediums, the Mahesvara, the core fragment after the destruction of the netherworld, the abyss of Yuta City, where the great darkness, heavenly evil beings, and countless distorted souls were hidden. There might also be a portion of the primordial demon court that was destroyed during the Great Magi Demon War. There might even be the remains of the ancient heavenly court. It was the fragment that fell into the blood sea after the primordial Bujo Mountain shattered, the burial ground where the bodies of the 12 grand wizards were buried. In the primordial era, there were 2 divine mountains and immortal islands that sank into the sinkhole, the missing primordial West Ocean and North Ocean Eye, the civilization of prehistoric human beings created by the reckless Lord Dara, who attempted to compete with Goddess Nuwa and Her Majesty Hudu for the creation of human beings in the primeval times, was the civilization of pseudo-humans, Ro's old subordinates, the true remnants of Azura, the remains of the mystic doors Dara Sky, Hao Tian's old body, a fragment of the ancient heavenly realm, the place where the golden crow bathed in the sun, the Tang Valley, Fusang. There were countless eras in the primeval times, innumerable ancient wars, and the rise of innumerable races and civilizations. Innumerable things that perished, were buried, forgotten, exiled, perished, distorted, sunk, despaired, and hopeful had all returned to the end of nothingness. This place was like a bottomless abyss that could not be entered or exited, and it buried all taboos. It was only after being possessed by the Ketu demon ancestor that Yuan Yu truly came into contact with all living beings. The Ketu demon ancestor was formed from the thoughts of the souls of all living beings after they died. What all living beings knew was what he knew. Although he was not omniscient and omnipotent, he was not far from it. After transforming into black yin and yang, Yuan Yu came into contact with the terrifying sea of thoughts formed by all living beings in the primeval times. He was almost impacted and lost himself. However, he also learned a lot of things from it. Yuan Yu's mood was extremely complicated. The experience of transforming into black yin and yang was too terrifying. Although he managed to maintain himself, it was inevitable that he would be contaminated and changed, or rather, he would grow. After experiencing and knowing so many things, growth and transformation were inevitable. In a sense, this was a kind of progress in cultivation, but in another sense it was also an advantage for himself. Yuan Yu knew that he could no longer go back. He was no longer a pure disciple of the mystic door. He could not avoid being tainted by the colors of the demon door. He wandered in the sea of thoughts of all living beings. The path of divinity was only in contact with the prayers of all living beings and the power of their wishes. Compared to the pure expectations and pious thoughts, it was said that incense was poisonous. Moreover, the river Styx took in the endless and meticulous thoughts of all living beings. 80% of them were distracting thoughts. Many of them flashed by, filled with extreme evil that broke ethics, violated morality, had no taboos, and had no bottom line. They were filled with chaos, indescribable sins, and distortions. The thoughts that flashed in the minds of these living beings were suppressed by the moral teachings. To individuals, these were just distracting thoughts. Because of the teachings and morality, the thoughts of all living beings tended to be normal. Those distorted and abnormal thoughts, those tyrannical, shameless, cruel, and chaotic thoughts could not change the nature of all living beings. However, they occupied a large part of the sea of thoughts of all living beings, turning into endless demons and e'en demons, becoming the source of evil for all living beings. This was the origin of the evil demon ancestor. Evil came from the source, originating from the fundamental thoughts of humans, the 7 emotions and 6 desires. Evil came from distracting thoughts, the endless distracting thoughts that were born and extinguished as they were born. Not only were they born in the consciousness of all living beings, but they were also suppressed and destroyed. Once these distracting thoughts could not be suppressed, evil thoughts would be born in all living beings. However, the evil thoughts in the consciousness of humans only existed for a short period of time. However, after these thoughts turned into ghosts, they would exist forever. In this way, the countless living beings in the primordial world, the accumulated distracting thoughts, and the distracting thoughts that had once been born, became a part of the all-beings demon ancestor. They became countless e'en demons and evil thoughts that were infinitely larger than the number of the primordial world. They gathered into an ocean. How terrifying was that? The evil demon ancestor used the evil blaze as its foundation and the evil thoughts as its wings. Those who truly understood its essence would tremble. Even the righteous path of the mystic door, the enlightenment of Buddhism, and the orthodox moral ideals of the human race could not be destroyed. Instead, they had to be careful of being contaminated and destroyed by it. They could only fight against it continuously. Evil was the source of the 7 emotions and 6 desires. Evil could only develop and grow when it had the evil foundation. Evil could only break through its bottom line when it had the bewitchment of evil. Therefore, regardless of whether it was the mystic door or the Buddhism, they had to use meditation to wipe away the dust in their hearts and maintain the calmness of their thoughts so that they would not have distracting thoughts and e'en demons would not disturb them. Only by suppressing evil thoughts and then using moral education to eradicate the root of evil could one get rid of evil and return to the righteous path. Yuan Yu transformed into yin and yang and saw the endless evil thoughts of the primordial world. There were countless yin demons, countless distracting thoughts, and countless evil views. The accumulated, distracting thoughts of countless living beings in the primordial world attacked him. In an instant, countless evil thoughts were infected. The evil thoughts touched the root of evil and almost merged with the evil, distorting and changing Yuan Yu's essence and self forever. Even so, Yuan Yu changed because of the purification of the living being's evil thoughts. His foundation changed, and his cultivation improved. No wonder the demon ancestor of all beings is the evil demon ancestor, and the evil demon ancestor is the demon ancestor of all beings. Yuan Yu still had lingering fear when he thought of it. The evil demon ancestor was originally a dark demon, god born from the source of Udacity. Because the souls of living beings had nowhere to go, they wailed in Udacity day and night, suffering endless pain and suffering. It was a twisted existence, the Lord of Evil. Because of its twisted essence, it was called the evil demon ancestor. The patriarch of River Styx interrupted the birth of the evil demon ancestor and helped Lady Hutu open up reincarnation, taking away the source of hell so that the evil demon ancestor could not be born. However, the patriarch created a terrifying existence like the evil thoughts so that the thoughts and consciousness of living beings could not be destroyed. Every thought and thought would turn into evil ghosts, gathering into the sea of collective consciousness of all living beings. The patriarch of River Styx realized that evil did not originate from darkness, but from the nature of living beings. He defined the 7 emotions and 6 desires, the negative nature of living beings, as evil, and the endless distracting thoughts as evil. The two complemented each other, and thus evil became one, creating the supreme source of evil. It is greed, sloth, lust, fear, domination. The patriarch of River Styx believed that the nature of living beings is emotion, and those with emotion are living beings. Therefore, from emotion comes desire, and from desire comes evil. All evil originates from emotion, and the 7 emotions and 6 desires are the most fundamental nature of living beings. Evil arises from emotion, and with emotion comes selfishness. That is why the heavenly Tao is impartial and almost emotionless. All living beings have emotions, and thus evil is born. Love and evil are interdependent and cannot be separated. Therefore, evil can only be suppressed, enlightened, and tamed, but cannot be eradicated. In the hearts of all living beings, there is an evil root. Although the evil root is born, the emotions of all living beings also have good karma. Good and evil are chaotic, and naturally there is no imbalance. Only the endless distracting thoughts are born and extinguished, and the distracting thoughts give birth to evil. It is precisely because of the nourishment of evil that the evil root will grow, and finally, evil will become one, sinking into hell. The demon ancestor of all beings controlled evil, which meant that he controlled the growth of the distracting thoughts of all living beings. With a single thought, the demon ancestor of all beings could control the distracting thoughts of all living beings. The endless ghosts turned into demons, causing the distracting thoughts of all living beings to grow. Before they could be suppressed and extinguished, the evil root would grow and subsequently distort one's nature, turning it towards evil. Back then, in the Garden of Solitude, the revered one of the world had foreseen this side of the demon ancestor, and thus blurted out the definition of demons in an attempt to help all living beings distinguish the distracting thoughts that came from their nature and the distracting thoughts that came from other natures. However, the evil demon ancestor had long surpassed self-nature and other natures. The demon ancestor of all beings did not have an ego, and the evil demon ancestor did not have the concept of I. Therefore, to all living beings, there was no concept of other. This was the absence of self and other. The demon ancestor of all beings did not have an ego, and to all living beings he was not other. The demon ancestor of all beings did not have an ego, so to all living beings, evil was not him. It seemed like the River Styx had given up control over the source of evil, but in reality it had given up control over evil, so evil could not be controlled. Therefore, the demon ancestor of all beings controlled the evil of all living beings, and did not interfere with or nurture evil. Only when all living beings saw external appearances would they have distracting thoughts. These distracting thoughts were difficult to distinguish between self-nature and other natures, and could not be controlled. It was like a person who would have all sorts of distracting thoughts when he saw money. If his morals were not complete and there were too many distracting thoughts, it would nurture his greedy nature. Then, evil would merge, and the self would deviate. The distracting thoughts produced by the spread of such information would naturally become the great Tao. After the evil demon ancestor was born, the more information he knew, the easier it was for him to have distracting thoughts. It was like how if a person did not have the concept of money, then when he saw money, he would not have any distracting thoughts, and this would further fuel the root of evil. However, cultivation was the fastest way to receive information. Therefore, the stronger one was, the stronger one's desires would be. The stronger one was, the more information one would receive, and the easier it was for distracting thoughts to be born. Therefore, the stronger one's cultivation was, the stronger the root of evil desire would be, and the more distracting thoughts there would be. Then, evil would merge, and the self would deviate, sinking into the demon Tao. In this way, the evil great Tao of the demon Tao was in line with the nature of all living beings. It was natural and close to the great Tao. It had truly become a part of the foundation of the great Tao. All living beings were sentient, so they were evil. Unless the sentient nature of all living beings was eradicated, evil would not be extinguished. Even Laozi, with his wisdom, could only pass down moral teachings to suppress the evil nature of all living beings. From then on, with the existence of the mystic door and Buddhism, there would definitely be the demon Tao. Without the mystic door and Buddhism, the demon Tao would flourish and it would be almost invincible. The mystic door and Buddhism passed down moral teachings, so those who went against the moral teachings were evil. Therefore, the more prosperous the moral teachings were, the more evil would penetrate deep into people's hearts. The deeper the teachings of Buddhism, the clearer the concept of the demon Tao. The Tao was 1 foot higher, and the demon Tao was 10 feet higher. It was like the two sides of yin and yang. Morality was like a circle, and the demon Tao was the external world that the circle came into contact with. The larger the area of the circle, the larger the external world it came into contact with. The circle would never be able to exceed the area it came into contact with. This was because morality was limited, but evil was limitless. It was because Yuan Yu realized this, that he understood the true foundation of the demon Tao that River Styx was scheming against. When the evil demon ancestor was achieved, all living beings would have endless, distracting thoughts. As long as the distracting thoughts were not eliminated, the evil nature of all living beings would not be severed. In this way, the unity of evil and evil would truly establish the unparalleled foundation of the demon Tao. This sounded simple, but it was actually very terrifying. Originally, among all living beings, there might be some species with firm thoughts and no distracting thoughts. Some almighty beings who cultivated to a profound realm and became Tai or Tao Lord could cultivate the Buddhist tranquil method or the mystic door method of heart cultivation. They could also have pure thoughts and no distracting thoughts. In the primordial times, when one reached a certain realm, they would not have any distracting thoughts, and their nature would not be distorted. This was completely possible. However, after the evil demon ancestor was born, it was completely impossible. This was because the evil demon ancestor had become the ocean of the subconscious of all living beings. The subconscious of all living beings could not be controlled by an individual. Even if they controlled their bodies and minds and purified their thoughts, when they saw all kinds of information, they would still be filled with distracting thoughts, and demons would be born. In other words, originally, cultivators could mark themselves with a thought steel seal and solidify their thoughts. Although they would become stubborn, they would not change their nature. It could be said that their nature was solidified. However, after River Styx created the evil demon ancestor and created the demon ancestor of all living beings, the consciousness of all living beings were connected together to form the ocean of subconscious. As long as information and distracting thoughts were not extinguished, it was equivalent to creating information transmission technology. When one received information, they would definitely be affected by it. Unless they did not think, they would definitely be affected by the external information. Because of this, even the most powerful cultivator could be possessed by the devil. Before the evil demon ancestor was born, once an eminent Buddhist monk achieved the Bodhisattva Buddhahood. He could completely restrain his thoughts and achieve the state where there was no Bodhi tree and no mirror. There was originally nothing, so where was the dust? Even if everyone that Bodhisattva knew was brought to him and slaughtered, he could still do it. There was originally nothing, so where was the dust? He solidified his self and would not be moved by external things. However, after the evil demon ancestor was born, the bodhisattva's body was like a Bodhi tree, and his heart was like a mirror. If he did not wipe it, it would definitely be tainted with dust. If he saw a world being destroyed in front of him and all living beings sinking in front of him, yet he was powerless to do anything about it. If he saw all kinds of cruelty, violence, shamelessness, twisting black and white, unable to distinguish right from wrong, his compassionate heart would also give birth to monstrous rage and endless resentment. He would no longer be able to remain indifferent. When he saw the deepest darkness in the world, even a bodhisattva would become a demon. Of course, such a demon was created by the Buddhist sections. The mystic door Buddhists used morality to restrain themselves. The harsher the morality, the stronger the evil. If the Buddhist sect's definition of bodhisattva was too high and the bodhisattva's morality was raised to an unattainable realm, then the bodhisattva who deviated from this realm would also become a demon. For example, the boundless resentment, the bodhisattva who saw the deepest evil in the world and rose up to slaughter those shameless and cruel bodhisattvas who cleansed the world. As such, the higher the realm of the mystic door Buddhists and the higher their morality, it would be like they were sitting on a high platform, teetering on the verge of collapse. The more they restricted themselves, the easier it would be for them to fall into the demonic Tao. This was the principle of good and evil, Tao and demonic, yin and yang, interdependence. It was precisely because Yuan Yu saw the most fundamental evil principle of the Ketu demon ancestor that he understood the principle of good and evil, Tao and demonic like yin and yang, the higher one's cultivation, the deeper one's morality, and the higher one's realm would be. Beyond the visible Tao, the invisible demonic would also be stronger, even higher and stronger than the Tao. The higher one's morality, the easier it would be to be defeated. When the Tao rises, the demonic doesn't disappear. When the Tao falls, the demonic grows. Yuan Yu knew too many truths about the evil demon master, so he became more and more taciturn. The group arrived at the gate of the underworld. Looking at the impregnable gate that separated yin and yang and divided life and death, Seatu and the others all felt as if they had been in another world. In front of the gate of the underworld, Shentu and Yulei, the two immortals who were like mountains, were guarding it. A divine tiger that shook its head and tail slowly walked not far away. It glanced at them and went straight into the gate. Its mountain-like claws played with the two divine masters for a while before it slowly walked to the huge peach tree, and Xiao Tian took a nap. When Shentu saw Xuetu and the others enter the gate, he said in surprise, "It's actually you demon brats. You've caused a lot of trouble in the underworld. I knew you were going to do something big. I heard that the 10 temples Yanluo were all killed." Yuan Yu chuckled softly and said, "The 10 temples Yanluo were not killed. How could you not know?" Shin Tu choked on his words and then burst into laughter. He rubbed his head and said, "Us brothers are just guarding the gate. We don't know anything." "Ha! We don't know anything, and it has nothing to do with us. Poor us brothers. We've been working so hard to guard the Hell's Gate for the underworld. We've been busy every day. The disputes in the underworld have nothing to do with us." Yu Lei smiled and rubbed the tiger's head. Rubbing the divine tiger like a big cat, it let out a low purr. In order to save Prince Mu, the little demon by Su Jin from the upper worlds did not hesitate to barge into the Hell's Gate, created a disturbance in the underworld, and triggered the devil calamity of the underworld. The Yin god was destroyed, and even the 10 temples Yanluo suffered because of this, affecting the fate of countless creatures in the untainted land, and changing the situation of the heavenly court. Emperor Zhuanshu has already heard of this, and specially sent someone to pick up Bai Sujin. Not long ago, Bai Sujin, Fahai, and Prince Mu had already come out from here and went to the heavenly court. It is said that Celestial Emperor Dong, Hua, has sent an angel to pick them up. It is not appropriate for us to stop the reunion of father and son. Shintu said, but even though this pair of lovers are innocent, they still caused a great calamity in the end. Humans and gods are in love, and they've gone against the laws of heaven. I wonder what will happen to these two after they leave, and I feel deep sympathy for them. This touching love between gods and demons, as well as the changes in the underworld during this period of time. The two of us have already recorded it down. We named it The Legend of the White Snake That Moves the Heavens and Earth, to record this taboo love and the beginning and end of the great calamity of the underworld. This is the beginning and end of the great calamity of hell. It was personally written by us gods of hell, the ghost emperors of the 5 directions. The ghost emperors of the 5 directions seem to be the only ones left. No, that's not right. The only gods left alive in hell are the 2 of us. We brothers are the greatest gods in hell. We are the will of the underworld, and what we record is the truth of hell's great calamity. The legend of the white snake that moves the heavens and earth and the legend of Emperor Mu are the reasons and history of the great calamity that our netherworld has determined. They are the work of us brothers with our blood, sweat, and tears. Yu lay past the 2 books to Yuan Yu and said, "If anyone dares to disagree, us brothers will blow up his dog head and make him unable to become a ghost. I'll leave these 2 books to you. You must let the gods of the heavenly courts and the living beings of the primordial world know the truth about the netherworld tribulation." Shintu nodded and said, "This is to prevent a small group of gods and cultivators who don't know the truth from spreading rumors, causing the people of the 3 realms to be deceived by these rumors and misunderstand the whole story of the underworld's great tribulation." Yuan Yu took the 2 books and flipped through them. At the foot of Mount Qingqing by Suzhin, this body has been cultivated for 1,000 years in the cave practice diligently to attain the Weibi reborn and become a human. Yuan Yu couldn't help but sing out loud. Then he shook his head and smiled bitterly. This by Suzhin clearly cultivated to become an immortal in Mount Li and was favored by the Holy Mother of Mount Li. She took him in and cultivated for 10,000 years before becoming a Tao Lord and coming out to face the tribulation. Mount Qingqing is a paradise of the mystic door. Why would that demon spirit dare to cultivate at the door? Great God Shintu laughed and said, "You little demon brat, how could you not understand the principle of taboo among venerables? We have no friendship with the Holy Mother of Lishan, so how could we offend her just because of a joke? Isn't it better to vaguely brush past such trivial matters? Moreover, Celestial Master Zhang of the Qingqing Mountain Celestial Master Cave came to the netherworld the day before yesterday to inquire about the news of the netherworld's great tribulation. He has always been respectful to us and asked us to spread the name of the Qingqing Mountain Celestial Master Cave. How can we bear to give him face? You're joking again. You just said that you're the only certified official history of the netherworld." Yuan Yu was speechless. He hurriedly flipped through the legend of the white snake, which was filled with a lot of reasonable speculations, artistic processing, and oral legends. According to the records, the netherworld's great tribulation was really ups and downs, full of deep love. Yuan Yu actually saw the shadows of countless infatuated men and women in this book. He raised his head and glanced at the 2 great gods, Shintu and Yulei, and thought to himself, "I didn't expect these 2 big eyes and bushy eyebrows to actually like this. It's also lonely guarding the gates of the underworld. If there's nothing new to stimulate them, it's really boring. Looking at the touching plot, the vivid description of the love between men and women, it's obvious that these 2 have asked countless infatuated children and heard countless love and hatred while guarding the netherworld's gate. Look at the description of Prince Mu's appearance, the elegant young man who attracted by Suzhin's heart. It's clear that he's a young girl who just had her first awakening of love. And this part, Imperial Lord Donghua is high and mighty, and he intervenes to stop the 2. This is clearly the infatuated man and woman being hindered by the world. Wow, this is a strange story of guarding the netherworld's gate. This interlude, the story of a lone fox demon falling in love with a white-robed swordsman of the human race, falling in love for 1,000 years and being willing to die by the sword, is definitely based on real people and events. Otherwise, it's impossible for you two uncouth fellows to write about the love between a fox demon and a young girl. And this love between a human and a ghost. When you were born, I wasn't born, and when I was born, you were already dead. I hate that we didn't meet before we died, and our souls returned together. In the end, they died for love and became a pair of ghostly lovers. I couldn't tell that you two brothers were guarding the Netherworld's gate. I have the ticket, but do you have the story? This kind of business is exciting. Chapter 1344. After exiting the gates of hell, the Shwe-Tu King took the legend of the white snake and looked back. On Mount Du Shua behind him, the huge peach trees towered into the sky, and the divine tigers were sleeping under them. It was a peaceful scene. Anyone who came and saw this scene would not be able to imagine how tragic it was behind the gates of hell, and what kind of calamity the underworld had experienced. The Shwe-Tu King flipped through the two books in his hands and sighed. I didn't expect the two gods to have such a hobby. No wonder they made up stories about that white snake lady. Demon Master, are we going to the celestial court to look for that Prince Mu? Or do we have other plans? There's no rush. There's still some time before the bell of chaos rings. Yuan Yu's face suddenly darkened. He said in a low voice, "We're going to look for someone who is free and unfettered and made me a scapegoat. There were 4 of us who came to this era from the heavens, and now there are only 3 of us left. How can this be? If we're brothers, we should all go and look for 4th brother." When the 6 sages attacked that day, he should have been saved by Saint Mother of Mount Li. Saved by Saint Mother of Mount Li? The Shwe-Tu King said with a strange expression. Why didn't Saint Mother of Mount Li save by Sujin, but Fan Wu Jie from the future, a total stranger? Could it be fate? The lifeless cult master frowned and said, Fan Wu Jie seems to be a very important person. Not only did the demonic ancestor place a peace on him, but he is also favored by a powerful person like Saint Mother of Mount Lishan. Could he be the one who is going to face the calamity? He came from the future. What tribulation taker is? Yuan Yu sneered. I didn't expect the Monkey King to be the sky, fiend, Tao master of our demon Tao. In the demon Tao, there are only 2 demon masters who can be called crown princes. One is the demon ancestor's direct disciple, the master of the sky, fiend orthodoxy. Legend has it that he is the only disciple of the patriarch, and he may inherit the orthodoxy in the future. So he is called the sky, fiend crown prince. But why does the sky, fiend Tao master call the patriarch uncle master? Could it be that the ancestor has a senior brother above him? At this point, the Shwe-Tu King could not help but shiver. In his heart, the shadow of the Patriarch River Styx was almost limitless. He could not imagine that the Patriarch still had a senior brother. What kind of person could become the Patriarch River Styx's senior brother? The Shwe-Tu King tried his best to imagine, but he could only imagine a blurry, cruel, and insane giant devil shadow. It could be said to be the ultimate manifestation of the diabolism, cruel and terrifying to the extreme. The other one is the mental demon crown prince. It is said that he has gained the favor of the old ancestor and was appointed by the demon ancestor to inherit the old ancestor's name in the future. Therefore, he is also known as the mental demon crown prince. Although the blood demon lineage also has 2 direct descendants of the demon ancestor, because the blood sea is the mother that gave birth to the old ancestor, it is impossible to give birth to a second demon master. Therefore, the patriarch of the blood sea lineage is the blood sea patriarch river Styx's blood sea patriarch. The blood sea patriarch is equivalent to the old ancestor himself. There is no blood demon crown prince. Unless the old ancestor abandons the blood sea patriarch one day and allows the blood sea to transform again, only then will the blood demon crown prince be born and inherit the blood demon lineage. Yuan Yu suddenly asked, You are direct descendants of the diabolism, unlike me who became a monk halfway through. I believe you must be close to the demon ancestor and have seen his heavenly face. Even if you haven't, you must have worshipped the statue of the patriarch River Styx. I wonder what the old ancestor looks like in your eyes. Can you describe it to me? The Shwe, Two Kings' face twitched, and he stared at Yuan Yu with a pair of dead fish eyes. Yin Yang Demon Master, why are you mocking us? We are lowly and have low cultivation. How can we have the opportunity to meet the old ancestor? Occasionally, we can get the old ancestor's decree, and we can't wait to worship him. Ajadi sneered. Not to mention the demon ancestor. Even if the demon ancestor carries his sword, the old ancestor Yuan-Tu, we can only worship a shadow sword. It is only today that we have the fortune to see the old ancestor Yuan-Tu's true face. Before Brother Yuan Yu inherited the Ketu demon ancestor, didn't you also have the fortune to receive the old ancestor of Ichi's help? That was how you managed to drag the 10 halls, Yanluo into Avicii's hell, in one fell swoop? Yuan Yu explained, although I have seen the demon ancestor, I don't know if he is the incarnation of the demon ancestor. That is why I am asking you. The Shwe Two Kings said with longing, of course, the demon ancestor is dressed like a Taoist, carrying Yuan-Tu and Avicii on his back, stepping on a blood lotus, as he said that he condensed the image of the River Styx patriarch. Yuan Yu took a closer look and saw that it was an old Taoist with a gloomy face, narrow eyes that flashed with a dim light. He looked very gloomy and cold, stepping on a 12th grade blood lotus, carrying 2 murderous swords on his back. He was dressed in a black Taoist robe, and he did not look like a good person. As expected of the demon Daozu's master, he was the combination of gloomy, cunning, cold, and indifferent image of the world. Yuan Yu recalled the youth with a jade-like face and a gentle smile he had met in the Tai era, and he could not help but fall silent. After a long silence, he said, the image passed down by the demon ancestor is like this? Ajadi had a natural expression, not feeling that there was anything wrong with it. If the patriarch of the River Styx did not look like a Taoist in black with a sword on his back, what else would he look like? Would he still be dressed like a child, learning from the big shots of the righteous path of the mystic door and shamelessly pretending to be young, saying that he looked like a child? Or would he be like the fallen Buddhists in order to be more approachable in the hearts of the believers, or to sneak into the territory of the Mother Goddess Hutu, so he would rather draw his blade and appear in public in female clothing? Uft! The demon ancestor of the path of diabolism is not that depraved. The demon ancestor had always been frank, not hypocritical, and did not need to hide anything. The old man looked mature and steady. The black clothes symbolized the darkness of the path of diabolism, indicating the cruelty and darkness of the path of diabolism. The blood-rimmed clothes indicated that the patriarch was born in the blood sea of the Earth Pole. His cold expression was a sign of decisiveness in killing. The 2 swords on his back and the blood lotuses under his feet were the patriarch's personal treasures, and they also reflected the path of diabolism's slaughter and evolution. The elder ancestor was magnanimous in his wickedness, bold in his wickedness, and indescribably powerful. He no longer needed to be disguised by any external appearance or external objects. What was the problem with that? What question would he dare to raise? The Shwe Two King looked at Yuan Yu with an expression that said, if you dare to speak ill of the patriarch, you'll die. Even if Yuan Yu was the lord of Dara, the difference between the two of them was so huge that it could not be measured. Yuan Yu felt a little guilty when he saw the patriarch's gaze. He held it in for a long time, but did not dare to say anything. He could only say, the demon ancestor has a dignified appearance and is full of righteousness, as expected of Master Daozu, the leader of our generation. It's really admirable and admirable. Yuan Yu returned to the topic at hand. The old mother of Mount Lishan has a shocking background. Previously, we heard from the Monkey King and the Sky Fiend Tao Master that the old mother of Mount Lishan is a primordial, primitive person and his sworn sister. Her true form is the eldest senior sister of the Jia sect, the incongruence divine mother. I've always been friends with senior brother Zhao Gongming of the Jie sect. Since senior sister Wudong is the eldest senior sister of the Jie sect, she's also my eldest senior sister. You must respect her. Don't forget that she's also the sworn sister of the Sky Fiend Crown Prince. Even if you don't respect me, you have to respect the Sky Fiend Crown Prince. Otherwise, be careful of that metal rod. The Shui Tu King had seen the Monkey King beat up Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva with his own eyes. He had long been shocked by the Monkey King's tyrannical violence. Moreover, the Monkey King was a legitimate direct disciple of the diabolism. His status in front of the river Styx was much higher than theirs. In terms of seniority, the Monkey King was the real patriarch of the two. He was not an outsider like Yuanyu who had no background. They immediately said solemnly, since she's the sworn sister of the patriarch, she's our patriarch's grandaunt. How would we dare to disrespect her? Yuanyu nodded. Then we'll pay our respects to the old mother of Mount Lishan and bring back our sworn brother. At the end of his sentence, for some reason, Yuanyu seemed to be gnashing his teeth. Mount Lishan was also a blessed spiritual mountain in the untainted land. It was said that at the foot of Mount Lishan was Nuwas Dojo, the land of the Huashu clan. The old mother of Mount Lishan had inherited Nuwas orthodoxy. In the rear hall of the old mother's palace, Emperor Hua and Emperor Shi were worshipped. Although Nuwa was the ancestor of the human race, she did not discriminate against the demon race. On the contrary, when Emperor Hua created tens of thousands of races, most of the demon race also worshipped Emperor Hua's creation merit. Moreover, the old mother of Mount Lishan was a primordial, primitive person. She was half human and half demon. Therefore, the human orthodoxy did not flourish in Mount Lishan. Instead, many demon races sought protection from the old mother of Mount Lishan. It was probably because the human race had the protection of the heavenly court and was the overlord of the untainted land. The demon race, on the other hand, was in a precarious situation and had to find a backer for themselves. Yuanyu and the others came out of the gates of hell. The untainted land was vast. Even with their astonishing speed, it still took them several months to reach the foot of Mount Lishan. They saw the sacred land of Mount Lishan, which stretched for hundreds of millions of miles, reaching into the 9 heavenly nights. Countless tens of millions of years old divine trees towered into the sky. Spiritual vines coiled around them like dragons. Lingji immortal herbs, jade herbs, and other strange flowers bloomed everywhere. Mount Lishan was the remnant of Mount Kunlun, where the remnant roots of Mount Buzhou were. Qinling was known as Kunlun in ancient times. This was the center of the untainted land. It had wonders that other places did not have. Shui, Tu Wu Sheng, and the other country bumpkins who came from the heavenly world sea in the future had never seen the most fertile Mount Buzhou. They stared at the mountain and saw the fire dates, which were regarded as the most precious spiritual roots by the future generations. Each of them hung on the treetops, sparkling and translucent. They were crimson and as big as melons. The dense spiritual energy on them could extend one's lifespan by hundreds of years if one ate one. If one ate them regularly, one could become an immortal. Although they were the lowest of immortals, it was enough to make the cultivators who struggled in the heavenly world see dumbfounded and in disbelief. No wonder celestial immortals were everywhere in the untainted land, and Taoist lords were like dogs. Only when one reached Tai could he occasionally tremble, and Dara could be free and unfettered. Shui, Tu King's eyes turned red. He looked around and saw countless spiritual herbs and spiritual roots that he could not name. Every single one of them was a rare and precious king of medicine that could lead to a fierce battle in the future. Yuanyu saw Wu Sheng and Shui Tu's faces flushed with anger. He had to remind them, this is the place of enlightenment of Saint Mother of Mount Li. Every mountain has an owner. Look, he stretched out his hand and pointed. Indeed, the place where the spiritual energy gathered and the acupoints where the spiritual energy formed shone with divine light. It was the place where the gods stayed and the temporary imperial residence was. The saint land of Mount Lee was managed by the gods like an iron bucket. Although the demons and spirits in the mountain were natural and free, they were still the people of the gods. The resources in the mountain were nominally ownerless, but they were used sparingly. If they let nature take its course, they would offend the incredibly powerful and ancient gods first. Oh my, who said that this Saint Mother of Mount Lee was a rogue cultivator who had many disciples but were useless. Chouette too clicked his tongue and said, if these gods listened to the orders of the Saint Mother, it would be equivalent to a powerful palace in the heavenly court. Don't forget, this Saint Mother has an ancient background. Not only is she the eldest apprentice sister of the Jia sect, she is also the Ajati matriarch of the divine path. Yuan Yu said softly. He followed the path to Goddess Nua's palace and rode a cloud. Before long, after passing by countless blessed lands and divine mountains, he finally saw Goddess Nua's palace at the foot of the main peak of Mount Lee. Chapter 1345. Saint Mother. Fan Wujia bowed to Old Mother of Mount Lee and said, Wujia has also comprehended the laws of reincarnation, comprehending the past and present lives. In my past life, I have indeed never seen Saint Mother. I wonder if Saint Mother is mistaken about something? Old Mother of Li Shan smiled. You still call me Saint Mother? Fan Wu Jia looked awkward and said carefully, Senior Sister. Yes. Saint Mother of Mount Lee smiled and said, You were such a stubborn and proud person in the past. I called you Junior Brother, but you insisted on calling me Junior Sister. When I became Master's disciple, how old were you? You insisted on saying that you entered the sect earlier, shamelessly acknowledging the position of eldest senior brother. She studied Fan Wu Jia and smiled. I wonder if you will still call me Senior Sister after you wake up? Fan Wu Jia tried even harder to recall his past life, but he really could not find out how he had gotten to know someone as important as the Holy Mother of Mount Lee, and had even been her junior brother. And who was the master of the Holy Mother of Mount Lee? Just like that, he was completely confused, and his face was filled with confusion. When the Holy Mother of Mount Lixing saw this, she laughed. You can't remember? That's right. Do you know how important the person who schemed against you is? You're just a puny Tao Lord. It's far too early for you to see through his schemes. Do you know that if I did not help you this time, when the evil demon ancestor of Hell's Udacity is born, he would be your scapegoat? In the future, when you are entangled with the demonic path, you will never be able to clear your name. Fan Wu Jia said solemnly, Senior Sister, please explain. Which great god wants to use me as a trap? Saint Mother of Li Shan shook her head. I cannot offend him. Junior brother, you have reincarnated into a human, so you must have a plan. Even if you are controlled by him, you must have a way. Senior Sister, I cannot disrupt your plans in your past life. If you wanted to know, you should have known long ago. Since you do not know, it means that you do not want to know. Fan Wu Jia said firmly, Senior Sister, I want to know. Old Mother of Li Shan stood up and smiled. She said benevolently, No, you do not. Junior brother, it is getting late. Your spirit has just been destroyed, and you have just woken up. You must be tired. Rest for now. There is no place for you in my Saint Mother's palace. Fan Wu Jia also felt that ever since he had woken up from his injuries, he had been in a daze and was in a trance. He assumed that there were still some lingering effects, so he bade farewell to Old Mother of Mount Lee and sat down on the praying mat, meditating and resting. Not long after, he entered a trance, his mind groggy, entering a strange state where he seemed to be dreaming and awake. Not far away, outside Mount Lee, King Yang held a rainbow crystal in his hand. At this moment, it was emitting a strange light. The bull demon king waved his hand and threw out 9 array flags, setting up a part of the heavenly cycle star formation around them. It corresponded to the Big Dipper, Heavenly Dipper, and was extremely mysterious. Demon King Jiao smiled and said, "Now that the Heavenly Court doesn't have the heavenly cycle star formation to suppress it, it doesn't have complete control over the stars, but it gives us the ability to steal from the heavens. This star shifting array borrows the power of the heavenly stars. In a day, it can teleport people from the east of the primordial world to the great western wilderness. Don't look at the stars in the primordial world as if they are moving extremely slowly. In fact, the heavenly cycle stars are moving extremely fast. They can be said to be extremely fast. The sun can cross the primordial world in a day, and its escape technique is unparalleled. In the past, it was said that the golden crow that rode the sun had a rainbow escape technique that was extraordinary. Today, as part of the heavenly cycle star array, this star-shifting array can also borrow the great attraction of the Big Dipper to transport people hundreds of millions of miles away in the blink of an eye. The Bull Demon King said softly, "Be careful. That goddess of Mount Li is not to be trifled with." King Yu Yang used the heaven-confusing crystal to bewitch that person's mind, causing him to be in a daze and unable to sense the changes in the outside world. I used the star-shifting array to secretly connect him with the Big Dipper and borrowed the power of the heavenly star shifting to bring him out of the goddess's palace. If we didn't follow that snake demon, we wouldn't have known that the missing person was actually in the goddess's palace. That day in the Tunghua Palace, this person's techniques were extraordinary. He had a great divine art of reincarnation. If I didn't have some abilities, I would have been defeated. I used the power of a movable to slowly grind him down. This was originally the fist intent that was most effective against his transformation technique. I didn't expect him to use the connate, inextinguishable divine light to escape in the end. Today, I see him in the goddess's palace again. The Bull Demon King's expression was uncertain. This person is very involved. He must be the core person of Goddess of Mount Li's plan, connate numinous treasure, and the Taoist formed by the spiritual light. He must be hiding a huge secret. In Goddess Nuwa's palace, 7 of the Big Dipper stars appeared and 2 were hidden. Old Mother of Mount Lishan sat in the main hall where the 3 pure ones were worshipped. Her gaze seemed to see through the hall above her and the vast night sky. She revealed a cold smile. Clearly, this benevolent goddess wasn't always good-tempered. The starlight from the Big Dipper contained a devouring power that shrouded Fan Wujia. At this moment, Fan Wujia was muddle-headed. His mind was captured by an unknown power and sank into the deepest part of his consciousness. Fan Wujia seemed to be awake, and in the deepest part of his consciousness, he looked at his own body from the side. He was awake, and he saw his own body falling asleep. He was in the room, and he couldn't see the moon, but there was starlight that filled the room. No matter how serious Fan Wujia's side effects were, he felt something was wrong. As expected, he saw his body being locked by the Big Dipper. Using the power of the Big Dipper, he was teleported millions of miles away in the blink of an eye. On the peak of a barren mountain, Fan Wujia fell into the formation and appeared in the space formed by the 9 flags. King Yu Yang was holding a 7-colored crystal. When he saw Fan Wujia, he dispersed the light and smiled. "Big brother, this kid has been kidnapped." Fan Wujia didn't open his eyes but spoke through his divine sense. "So it's the 7 great saints of the monster race. Previously in the Tunghua Palace, you were stopped by us when you tried to assassinate Prince Zimu. It seems like you are not satisfied and are willing to take the risk to kidnap me. I wonder what do you want to know from me? To be honest, I have just woken up, so I don't know much more than you do. If you want to know about Prince Zimu's whereabouts, I can say that you have found the wrong person." Bull Demon King shook his head and laughed. "Haha, who does Prince Zimu think he is? If it wasn't because of his special identity, would he be worth our effort? Now that the conflict between the human and the monster race is reaching its climax, what does it have to do with us, whether Prince Zimu is alive or dead? But there are many things that I don't understand." That day, when I was about to destroy you with my unmoving fist, an innate spirit light rushed out and took you away. Why do you have an innate spirit treasure with you? Fan Wu Jie said in a deep voice, so you are here for the innate spirit treasure. Not only that, Bull Demon King walked to his side and said slowly, I also know a little about Prince Zimu's whereabouts. They were saved by the Monkey King and escaped to the underworld. It is said that there was a great change in the underworld, and even the gates of hell were sealed. We don't know what happened, but it must have something to do with Seventh and your group of people. Do you know that the great sage equal to heaven, who saved Prince Mu and your other 3 brothers, is the sworn brother of Old Mother of Mount Li, the one who saved you? He is also the 7th of the 7 great sages. Why do you have an innate spirit treasure with you? Why are you in the Old Mother of Mount Li's palace? Why did 7th save Prince Zimu and his group? Why did you people from the future appear in this era? Why did you cause such a great change when you entered the underworld? These are the questions I really want to know. Bull Demon King said, these clues are all related to you, so I don't care about Prince Zimu now. What I care about is your secret. Fan Wu Jie paused, then laughed loudly. As he laughed, he shook his head and said, I want to know the answers to these questions too, but I don't even know myself, so how can I answer you? Bull Demon King's huge bull head showed a rather stiff smile for a human face. The muscles under the bull's nose twitched, and it took a lot of effort to smile, but he said softly, we have all the time in the world. Let's figure it out bit by bit. First of all, why did you come from the future? Fan Wujie answered honestly, of course, we're here for the grand heavenly heaven that's hidden within the bottomless ruins. We're here to ascend to the grand heavenly heaven beyond the grand heavenly heaven. If we're not here to ascend to the grand heavenly realm, why else would we be here for fun? If you are going to Dara heaven, why did you come to this era? Fan Wu Jie laughed softly and said, the path to Dara heaven is a long river of time that goes against the current. If you want to prove Dara heaven, you have to go against the current and trace back to the past. The secret of the Tao of Dara shocked the other great sages. Great sage Yuan Feng stood up and said, King Yuyang, try and see if what he said is true. King Yuyang raised the crystal and looked at Bull Demon King hesitantly. Bull Demon King shook his head and said, there's no rush. Let's continue asking first, and we will verify it together later. So you came to this era to find Dara heaven? Fan Wujie was also using Bull Demon King's questions to sort out his journey from another angle, trying to catch the mastermind behind the scenes. He said in a low voice, when we went against the flow of time, we encountered a whirlpool. Near this point in time, we heard a bell ring, and then we fell into the river of the world and came to this era. A bell ring. Bull Demon King was silent. His right hand clenched tightly. Demon King Jiao also looked up in horror and said, you really heard a bell ring? Fan Wu Jie sneered and said, don't you know? You still have to ask me. What do we know? Great sage of exorcism, King Yu Yang shouted. The ancient demon court has returned. Bull Demon King interrupted Fan Wu Jie and said, shut up. Bull Demon King continued to ask, since you came to the past by accident, how did you know Prince Mu and get involved in the conflict of the celestial heavens? Because of a coincidence. Fan Wu Jie laughed mockingly. Bull Demon King said slowly, do you think I will believe you? I don't believe you either. So it is because of someone's scheme, a scheme that I don't know who it is. Fan Wu Jie had already begun to sort out his thoughts and find clues about that person, the mastermind behind the scenes. Chapter 1346. The exorcist saint looked down at the 7-colored crystal. It was an innate spiritual treasure similar to the Nanhua Enlightened's dream butterfly and the 8 visions, Tao, Lord's great illusionary mirror. They were all spiritual treasures that could peer into one's mind and distort reality. Coupled with the exorcist saint's innate ability, It was as easy as eating and drinking for him to discern whether Fan Wu Jie was telling the truth or not. The great saint of exorcism raised his head and nodded at the bull demon king. What this man said is true, but big brother, the human race is full of slyness. They are not as honest and loyal as us demons. Even if they speak the truth, we cannot trust them completely. The bull demon king smiled faintly. He moved closer to Fan Wu Jie and said in a deep voice, "Young lad, with your intelligence, it shouldn't be hard for you to guess what our plan was when we dared to kidnap you and interrogate Saint Mother of Mount Li and Seventh." Fan Wu Jie tilted his head and stared at the crystal in the exorcist saint's hand. "So it's a rare spiritual treasure." No wonder the Demon King is so confident that you can dig out what you want from my head. The Bull Demon King laughed. "You know what's good for you?" "That's right. Even if you don't say anything, we can still get what we want. It's just a little rougher and a little more effort. But kid, your Yuan Shen is such a delicate thing. If we rougher it, your Yuan Shen will be gravely injured and your soul will be destroyed in the end. If we dig a little deeper, you won't even be able to be a beast the next time you reincarnate." The Bull Demon King unleashed his ferocious aura, suppressing Fan Wu Jie so much that he couldn't even breathe. Fan Wu Jie couldn't speak and could only curl his lips into a sarcastic sneer. The Bull Demon King retracted his aura, and only then did Fan Wu Jie gasp for breath. He smiled and said, "Demon King, you sure are impressive. Just as you said, you have your own ways to search my primordial spirit for what you want. It's just that in order to be more precise, to prevent you from using this spiritual treasure to dig out my Yuan Shen's memories and miss out on any details, you spared my life and allowed me to start a new generation." According to the Demon King's words, in order to protect my primordial spirit, I should be honest. Because the more honest and sincere I am, the more I'll be saving myself, the exorcist saint sneered and added, "Even if you tell me the truth, I'll still use the mystifying crystal to search your soul and verify it. If you tell me in detail, it'll be easier for me to control it, and you won't have to suffer more pain and suffer irreparable damage to your primordial spirit." Fan Wu Jie laughed aloud and said, "But Devil King, since you know that I have a primordial spirit treasure, why don't you take a guess? Why would a mere pawn like me have a primordial spirit treasure to protect me? If I had a primordial spirit treasure to protect me, would I have been kidnapped by you? So, what exactly is this connate spirit treasure protecting?" The Bull Demon King was stunned for a moment. Then he frowned and thought about the possibility. When Fan Wu Jie was almost killed by him, the connate spirit treasure did not come out to protect its master. Instead, when the Bull Demon King was about to destroy Fan Wu Jie's consciousness, the connate inextinguishable spirit light emerged from his true spirit and protected his consciousness. In this way, the possibility of the connate spirit treasure being hidden in the depths of Fan Wu Jie's consciousness was the highest. If he used the mystifying crystal to search his consciousness, it would trigger a reaction from the connate spirit treasure, and that would be bad. The Bull Demon King was not afraid of the connate spirit treasure, for it was just a spirit treasure. Now, they also had a connate spirit treasure that was related to the realm of consciousness. What he was afraid of was that when the two connate spirit treasures clashed, they would be fine, but Fan Wu Jie would be destroyed along with his secret. But the Bull Demon King was not threatened. He laughed and flicked his sleeves. "Don't even think about it. Your existence is not as important as you think. Even if you have the connate spirit treasure to protect the great secret in your consciousness, if we fail to search your soul, we will only lose a chance to know the secret. If you don't want to start a new generation, this chance will be meaningless. But your soul will be destroyed, and not even a trace of your consciousness will be left." "No, I am very important." Fan Wu Jie laughed. "If you know who I am, then you will know the real important part of the secret. The secret behind the great calamity of the underworld, the Monkey King scheme. And why did the old mother of Mount Lee intervene? Why did we come to this era? It is all related to my identity. Bull Demon King, your plan may be laughable, but you have grasped one point. And that is me. Fan Wujia said honestly, figuring out who I am is the real key to unlocking this secret. The great sage of the exorcist god sect was stunned when he heard this honest confession. He waited for Fan Wujia to finish before lowering his head to inspect the bewitching crystals. He was in a daze as he stuttered, "Big brother, he's telling the truth." The few monster kings tilted their heads and looked at Fan Wujia. Fan Wujia had told them his most important secret without holding anything back. Could it be that this person was a fool? Knowing that Fan Wujia was the most important part of the secret, the Bull Demon King lost all his scruples. Old Bull was not a quick-witted person. He only knew how to take one step at a time, one punch at a time, and reach the end steadily. But now, you have delivered yourself to the end. Because of this, the Bull Demon King would use all means to dig out Fan Wujia's secret. Fan Wujia did not panic. Instead, he was very calm. I am the senior brother of the old mother of Mount Lee. This means that my original background is very shocking. The 7 great sages of the monster race do not even dare to provoke my junior sister, and they secretly kidnapped me here. This means that my secret is not worthy of them knowing. The person who plotted against me, or even the original me, should be far beyond the level of the 7 great sages of the monster race. I can borrow their hands to unravel my true past and present lives. The Heaven Obfuscating Crystal is a rare spiritual treasure in the 3 realms. It is proficient in the transformation of consciousness and is an innate spiritual treasure that defines reality and illusion. With this treasure, I can definitely go deep into my consciousness and find my true self that is buried even deeper than reincarnation. The exorcist saint glanced at the Heaven Obfuscating Crystal in his hand and suddenly said, "Big brother, this kid has a plan and a deeper secret." Just now, he was deep in thought, and his thoughts were very rational in blue. This means that he did not lose his consciousness when he exposed the secret, but he had thought it through thoroughly. Of course, the Bull Demon King said slowly, "So, why did you tell us the most important secret about yourself? What is the secret that you have? Who are you? How dare you say that the secret of your identity is the key to the old mother of Mount Lee's plan?" Fan Wujia smiled and said, "Because I don't know who I am." "Haha, kid, you said you don't know who you are?" The Bull Demon King laughed. "Aren't you afraid of making a joke out of yourself?" The exorcist saint interrupted weakly. "Big brother, what this kid said is also true. What's so strange about that?" Fan Wujia said calmly, "Some people lie to even themselves. Isn't hiding the secret in a place that even they don't know the best way to protect this secret? But you told us where the secret is hidden. Because I don't have the key myself, why not use you to open the door that hides the true secret?" The Bull Demon King looked at Fan Wujia and repeatedly sized him up. His eyes were filled with hesitation and his face was dark. He took the crystal from the exorcist saint's hand and stared at the flickering light on the 7-colored crystal. The colors on his face were also changing constantly. It was a very interesting sight. The exorcist saint said carefully, "Big brother, I feel that although he is telling the truth, he is actually plotting against us. Of course, he is plotting against us. If we want to see through his plot, should I just slap him to death and end all troubles? Stop thinking about so many secrets. Stop thinking about the old mother of Mount Lee, the Monkey King, and the destruction of the underworld." The Bull Demon King said to himself, "I, the old bull, am not someone who likes to play tricks. I will kill him right now. I will pretend that I never heard these words. If I don't listen, no matter what he has planned, I will just go all the way." When Fan Wujia heard this, he was not nervous at all. It was as if the old ox was not talking about his life. He sat up leisurely and swung his legs. He tilted his head to one side and looked at the 6 great demons with a pure expression on his face. The Bull Demon King's temperament had always been down to earth. He took one step at a time, one punch at a time, exploring secrets, seducing hearts, fighting against each other, and participating in the plot of a group of great mediums was not something he was good at. He just didn't want to let his majesty tie down. Therefore, he planned for the demons to cause chaos, for humans and demons to fight, and then ambush Prince Mu before the situation unfolded. He used Little Qing as a bait and baited the big fish, Fan Wujie. The old bull instinctively knew that behind the chaos in the underworld, there must be a world-shaking plot. Yanluo of the 10 halls were all dead. The underworld had collapsed, and the heavenly court's attitude was so strange. What was the 7th great sage, heaven's equal thinking? Had the Bull Demon King never seen through the mysterious 7th great sage? The old bull knew that the best he could do was to be down to earth and seriously do everything he had to do. If he was the great sage who pacifies the heavens and the Bull Demon King, he should do this. However, the Tai Divine Emperor had given him the demon race before the heavenly court descended. The old bull not only represented himself, but also the demon race and the heavenly court. He had to shoulder all of this, so he had to enter this game. A chess piece had to play chess for the chess player. This meant that the pawn could not reach the central palace step by step. I think I should kill you, but I can't. As a chess piece, I should move forward. As a chess player, sometimes I have to sacrifice chess pieces to figure out the big picture. Therefore, I, Old Cow, must enter this round. His Majesty's arrival has already determined the big picture. It's time to sacrifice some unnecessary chess pieces to explore the path of others. The Bull Demon King sighed and said to the great sage of the exorcist god beside him, Old 6, explore the depths of this person's consciousness. The great sage of the exorcist god, Yu Mingwang, came to Fan Wujie and gave him a deep look. He placed the sky-confusing crystal on the top of Fan Wujie's head. A strange light shone and sank into the depths of Fan Wujie's Yuanshin. Fan Wujie sat where he was, unmoving and unusually obedient. The sky-confusing crystal penetrated Fan Wujie's consciousness and entered his spiritual world. He saw his memories of this life, those insignificant, long, and even some insignificant details that he could not remember. One day, when he was still young, he clamored for a sweet biscuit. Before his consciousness matured, he had some shameful memories. From the perspective of his current consciousness, he dug out those memories that could become childish when his consciousness was immature. The self of that time was full of conflict and incongruity in the eyes of the current self. Just touching the memories made him feel the same shame. This was the denial of the past after the personality matured. It was commonly known as a dark history. Recalling one's dark history was a shameful punishment. Such a conflict of personality caused the memories of the past to be blurred. Even a Tao Lord like Fan Wujie was the same. The Tao Lord's previous personality was full of flaws compared to the current self. Some of the memories regarding the facts were naturally preserved, but some of the thoughts, emotions, and thoughts of the past were no longer harmonious in the current self, as if they were the thoughts of another person. The Tao Lord self was very harmonious, like a perfect circle, but the thoughts and consciousness produced in the system of the past self were no longer suitable for the Tao Lord self, and would be blurred. Only by attaining primordial unity and attaining the characteristics of Dara, the past and the future, could one accommodate the past self. This was a process that the fruit of primordial unity, the characteristics of Dara, had to go through. It was also known as the Tao contamination of the future. It was one of the most dangerous tribulations of primordial unity. After the fruit of primordial unity connected the past and the future self would usually deny the past self. Just like after a person was reborn, the memories and consciousness of the future would overwrite the consciousness of the present. After being reborn, the childish self would die, the flawed self would lose everything, the innocent self would die, and the foolish self would die. Such a trend could not be reversed, because ugliness, childishness, and foolishness were dregs and e'en demons to the Tao Lord. The thoughts produced by the past consciousness were e'en demons to the future self, and thus would naturally be dispelled and corrected. But in the timeline of the characteristics of Dara, the past self was established, a part of its existence. The past me and the present me were both me in the timeline, existing together without any hindrance. If the characteristics of Dara were attained, the Tao Lord and primordial unity selves would deny the past self and overwrite the past self, just like the Tao contamination of the future, distorting the past and disappearing the timeline of the self. It was as if the Tao Lord had been reborn to the source of the self, the Tao contamination of his past, wiping out his past consciousness. Such a fruit of primordial unity was equivalent to an incomplete Tao validation, and there would be severe repercussions. For those below primordial unity, the conflict between the past and the present, and even the future consciousness, was merely a conflict of consciousness. But for the existence of the fruit of primordial unity, who is attaining the characteristics of Dara, the illusory conflict of consciousness in the timeline could already affect reality and would cause the true past self to be erased. It was only after attaining the Tao of primordial unity that Fan Wujia's consciousness could return to the past and calmly accommodate the thoughts based on the past self. That was why he could run around with the consciousness of a Tao Lord, but naked, with little sparrow in his grasp. If a Tao Lord who had not passed this stage could return to the past and still maintain the attitude of a Tao Lord, how could he accept the thoughts produced by his childhood consciousness? At that time, if a Tao Lord were to deny these thoughts and treat them as external demons, it would be equivalent to denying his past self. The Tao contamination tribulation of primordial unity referred to denying the past self, and then, under the power of the fruit of primordial unity, erasing the past self, causing the future Tao contamination, solidifying the consciousness, denying the past, and proving the Tao incomplete. The timeline of the self, from the past to the future, from small to large, would be bound to a fixed moment. No matter when, the self of consciousness would always be the self at the moment of attaining the Tao of primordial unity. Thus, when Brahma Wu Jia's consciousness was even more ancient, when that unimaginable and indescribable self had descended upon him, Brahma Wu Jia very consciously fell asleep. He did not try to understand the secrets of the grand immortal, did not try to accommodate that other self, because such an understanding and accommodation would only leave his consciousness riddled with holes. Because to the heavenly Lord of plentiful treasure, Fan Wujia's consciousness was full of mistakes, shame, and ugliness. Fan Wujia did not need to become the heavenly Lord of plentiful treasure of the past, because that was equivalent to denying himself and erasing himself. He only needed to understand who he was, and that was enough. And now he knew. So, I am plentiful treasure, the eldest senior brother of the Jia sect, heavenly Lord Dara, eldest senior brother of plentiful treasure. Fan Wujia found it difficult to accommodate plentiful treasure, but plentiful treasure very naturally accommodated Fan Wujia. He instantly accepted Fan Wujia's various thoughts, consciousness system, ideas, emotions, and self. Plentiful treasure was Fan Wujia, but Fan Wujia was not plentiful treasure because plentiful treasure's realm could accommodate Fan Wujia, but Fan Wujia's realm could not understand plentiful treasure. Therefore, at this moment, many treasures was Brahma Wujia. He raised his head, and his eyes revealed a little excitement with a little childlike innocence and pure evil, just like the excitement of a child when they were tearing off the wings and legs of a grasshopper. Plentiful treasure looked at the sweating great saint exorcist, who was using the bewitching crystal to penetrate deep into Fan Wujia's consciousness. He had already alarmed Fan Wujia's forbidden past, but he did not know it. Plentiful treasure asked excitedly, "What are you doing?" The great saint exorcist raised his hand to wipe the sweat from his forehead and said, "Almost into the depths of your consciousness. There is indeed a secret. In the depths of your consciousness, there seems to be a divine light that is completely different from the essence of your consciousness. It actually has a hint of the innate divine light. Bull Demon King said with certainty, "This should be the innate spiritual treasure that seals his deep consciousness." Tempted, Plentiful Treasure raised his hand weakly and asked, "Why can't it be me?" The great Saint Exorcist said impatiently, "Don't interrupt. What can you know about your consciousness? Only I have the right to speak." Bull Demon King waved his hand and said, "Let him speak." Plentiful Treasure's eyes flashed with the pure curiosity of a child. "I mean that innate divine light might not be the innate spiritual treasure that seals my consciousness, but my deep consciousness itself?" The great Saint Exorcist was slightly taken aback, then laughed mockingly. "You mean you are the reincarnation of an innate spiritual treasure?" Bull Demon King lowered his head and stared at Plentiful Treasure, wanting to see something, but he really could not see the difference between Plentiful Treasure and Brahmawujya, because Plentiful Treasure was Brahmawujya, the essence of his primordial spirit, his consciousness, his self, and his thoughts were all Brahmawujya. Bull Demon King bowed slightly and said, "Indeed, this possibility cannot be ruled out. If your secret is the reincarnation of an innate spiritual treasure, then it is indeed an unexpected plot that concerns the great divines." Plentiful Treasure tilted his head and stared at Bull Demon King and the others. His eyes were so pure that it was chilling, and the flickering curiosity in them was not mixed with any impurities. It was as if the 6 great saints had been stripped of any additional concepts, leaving only the purest essence, which aroused his curiosity. Or perhaps any additional attributes of the Bull Demon King and the others were meaningless to him. So there was no fear, no seriousness, no hostility between humans and demons, and no key identity of the greater one divine court's plan. All that was left was Bull Demon King's purest, most simple self. Plentiful Treasure laughed and said, "I am not the reincarnation of an innate spiritual treasure." "Then what are you?" Bull Demon King's eyes flashed. "Speak frankly." Plentiful Treasure laughed and said, "I am Celestial Lord Dara." But your guess is actually not wrong, or rather, all innate spiritual treasures are Celestial Lord Dara, and all innate spiritual treasures are Silent Dara. So, the innate, inextinguishable spiritual light does not represent innate spiritual treasure, but Dara. My name is Plentiful Treasure. Plentiful as an innate spiritual treasure. That was not my original name, but I have seen too many silent Dara. Some of them were my junior brothers and sisters who admired me. Some were my friends, and some were my respected teachers. I knew too many of them, so they entrusted their bodies to me when they went into hibernation. That's why I have many connate numinous treasures. So, I have lost many junior brothers and sisters, friends, and teachers, so everyone calls me Plentiful Treasure. Plentiful as in many treasures, treasure as an innate spiritual treasure. I am the Plentiful Treasure that buried Dara. Plentiful Treasure's voice was calm, but the content was chilling. Bull Demon King, Dragon Demon King, Rock Demon King, and the others felt their hair stand on end. They were already the group of people closest to Dara in the primordial world. Although Dara was sacred, it was not an untouchable realm for them. Although they were lowly in front of Dara, it was not that they did not have a place. However, in Plentiful Treasure's words, they could feel a true sense of insignificance and terror. Wujia is Dara, and Numinous Treasure is also Dara. I see many old friends in you. Plentiful Treasure sighed. The whip-shaped, innate, spiritual treasure in the Bull Demon King's hand trembled slightly. The Dragon Demon King's trident also trembled silently. The Rock Demon King's jade talisman flowed with colorful light. The 7-colored crystal in the Great Sage of Exorcism's hand also emitted a faint glow. The Lion Camel King's hand was heavy, and the Great Sage of Wind's demonic banner fluttered. With plentiful treasures words, the 6 numinous treasures emitted strange movements that surprised their owners. Mountain driving whip, sea overturning trident, wind thunder talisman, heaven confusing crystal, primordial chaos iron mountain, moon flag, plentiful treasures tone was faint. They are all old friends. The great sage of stone driving, the 7 seas dragon king, the great sage of wind and thunder, the great sage of heaven confusion, the king of iron mountain, the great sage of full moon. The primordial demon court has 81 great sages of the demon race, 72 demon kings, and 10 demon generals, all of whom are Dara. Junior, I heard that you are also great sages, but I wonder how much you are inferior to the great sages of the primordial heavens? Chapter 1347. Xuandu Guangqing Duo Bao Wudong. They could be said to be the 4 eldest senior brothers of the mystic door under the 3 pure ones. These 4 eldest senior brothers of the mystic door were all great divine arts, and their cultivation was not inferior to that of the veteran great divine arts, such as Gonggong, Xianming, and Kuanpeng. Because of the mystic door's support, many of the mystic door's Dara had been taught by them on behalf of their masters. When they lost themselves, they entrusted their bodies to them, so the numinous treasures in their hands were better than theirs. Although he had not become Dara and did not know how terrifying these 4 eldest senior brothers who presided over the mystic door on behalf of the 3 pure ones were, and most of the mystic door's resources were in their hands. But who did not know the name of Duobao? How many immortals of the Jia school in the 4 seas and 8 wastelands, and how many divine guests in the heavenly world had to worship this eldest senior brother of the Jia school? He had presided over the immortal vanquishing array on behalf of the Grand Master of Heaven, and dared to attack Uncle Master. Bull Demon King's heart sank. No wonder Fan Wujia said that his identity was one of the biggest secrets in this game. Of course, the eldest senior brother of the Jia school has the right to say that. No wonder Goddess Li Shan wanted to save him. No wonder he was set up and came from the future. No wonder he was related to the calamity of the netherworld that shocked the 3 realms. With this eldest senior brother's identity, it would not be surprising even if he was involved in a great calamity. Demon King Jiao had a flash of understanding. At the sky-bearing meeting, immortal vanquishing Sword Chi. Yes, is there anyone else in the world who is more likely to understand the 4 immortal vanquishing swords? The Grand Master of Heaven would never attack someone like Zhang Jiao because of his identity. No wonder the appearance of the sea-calming divine pearl and the immortal vanquishing Sword Chi shocked everyone. We thought that the mystic door's Jia school had intervened. But now that the reincarnation of Duobao has been exposed, isn't that the case? Demon King Jiao's expression changed, and he said sarcastically, a stupid worm like Zhang Liang actually died in the hands of the heavenly lord of Duobao. I wonder how many lifetimes he cultivated. The Bull Demon King also calmed down. They were the 7 great sages of the demon race, not the people of the mystic door, so there was no need for them to worship the big brother. Even if he had to die today, he would have to witness the methods of the eldest senior brother of the mystic door first. The Bull Demon King clenched the mountain driving whip in his hand. As the hand of the 7 saints, he stood in front of Duo Bao. The Dragon Demon King moved to the side of Duo Bao like a venomous dragon. The Lion Camel King and the Rock Demon King also found their positions and waited. The 6 great sages of the demon race spread out and surrounded Duo Bao in the middle. The Khanate numinous treasures in their hands constantly revealed amazing divine power, as if they had all awakened from a deep sleep. Only then did the 6 great sages realize that the power of the numinous treasures they had used before was like a toy compared to the true power of the Khanate numinous treasures. Now, the power that these numinous treasures were spontaneously releasing had the power to destroy the world. The sea-overturning trident swallowed and spat out spiritual light with a rhythm like inhaling and exhaling. As it swallowed and spat, a huge tide surged from the east. It was unknown where the tide came from, but the peak of the tide was higher than the barren mountain under their feet. In an instant it submerged a mountain ridge. The surging tide was like a vast ocean, rising and falling like the tide. The dragon demon king raised the sea-overturning trident and waved it casually. It was like the sea had turned upside down, raising a boundless curtain of water that towered in the east like a curtain wall that couldn't be seen. The huge flood rose up, and in the water, curtained behind the dragon demon king, a huge whirlpool of the eye of the sea was formed. In the eye of the sea, the endless destructive aura was like the blood sea calamity eye that Fan Wujia had seen in the ruins of End in the past. It was just that the power and momentum were even more terrifying than the blood sea calamity eye that had buried Matsura King in the past. It was like the scene of the water calamity of the end of the heavens. The mountain-driving whip in the bull demon king's hand was an inconspicuous black, mixed iron whip. In the bull demon king's hand, it was like a heavy iron pole. However, this whip could shatter the jade emperor peak of Mount Tai and break the earth's veins and mountain roots. If it hit a person's body, it would be nothing. In the bull demon king's hand, this treasure was heavy and powerful. There were no other tricks, however. This kind of spiritual treasure was the most suitable spiritual treasure for the old bull. It was like 100,000 mountains held tightly in one's hand. It had unwavering power. Every lash was filled with overwhelming power that did not move or scatter. One lash after another, it could pile up the purest power to the point where it could crush the vacuum. It surpassed the limits of this celestial arch and this universe. The rock demon king's wings flapped, and countless lightning hurricanes raged. The clouds in the sky were dark, and countless lightning flashed, like countless flood dragons dancing. The wind surged, and above the tidal sea that the dragon demon king had summoned, countless water dragons were swept up. Between the water and the sky, countless tornadoes wrapped in lightning raged. The momentum was vast, like a heavenly tribulation. This was the power of the wind and thunder seal. The iron mountain in the lion camel king's hand turned into a black divine peak, standing tall in the west like an iron curtain. Together with the water curtain in the east, they sandwiched Duo Bao in the middle. There was a line in the sky, and countless wind and thunder raged. Duo Bao was surrounded in it, like an inconspicuous ant. The macaque king waved the demon banner, and the rolling demon clouds covered the 6 great sages. The demon clouds covered the moon, turning into rolling dark clouds in the sky. The bewildering crystal in King Yu Yang's hand was almost transparent, and it was very mysterious. King Yu Yang held the crystal in his hand, and his figure turned illusory like an illusion, sinking into the dream world. In the land of dreams, in the level of the great illusionary land, he approached Duo Bao, trying to make his consciousness sink into the depths again, in exchange for Fan Wujia. In the line of heaven and earth between the iron curtain in the west and the water curtain in the east, Duo Bao's figure was small and lonely. It was still the old body of Fan Wujia, but under the control of Duo Bao's consciousness, it gave the 6 great sages an incomparably strong sense of intimidation. He was incomparably small in this line of heaven and earth, but with this small body, he became the unquestionable center of heaven and earth. Duo Bao raised his head. With his thin human body, he looked up at the bull demon king, who was as tall as a small mountain, the flood dragon demon king, who was thousands of feet long and had towering scales and horns. The rock demon king, who was circling low in the sky, attacked the water for 3,000 miles with his rock body. The lion camel king, whose hair was fluttering in the wind, roared in a low voice like rumbling thunder. There was also King Yu Yang, whose figure turned illusory, and the macaque king, who was hiding in the black clouds. Duo Bao looked around and smiled. It was like a lazy, warm smile under the warm winter sun, that extremely relaxed and warm smile, regardless of whether it was the 6 great sages of the demon race who were giving their all, or the connate spiritual treasures that were gradually recovering under the influence of his power. He was supercilious. How could the trace of spiritual light that the demon ancestor had taken away not be tainted with demonic nature? The 4 leaders of the mystic door, the eldest senior brother of the Jesko, how much he had experienced, how much regret he had, how much past he had, how much power he had, how much darkness and how much hidden demonic nature there was in his heart. Now that it had been stimulated by the hand of River Styx, Duo Bao was indeed worthy of being the sky fiend Tao master candidate that River Styx had originally favored. You! Duo Bao's smile gradually turned bloody, and his expression also carried a trace of disappointment. He sneered as if he was disdainful and arrogant. Is that all you've got? That's far from enough to save your lives from my hands. Duo Bao laughed hideously, and suddenly his body expanded. Countless spiritual lights appeared between heaven and earth, among which 13 inextinguishable spiritual lights drilled out of the void and entered into Duo Bao's body, merging into Fan Wu Jie's flesh. His fists, legs, limbs, head, body, every inch of his muscles, hair, and skin was integrated with the inextinguishable spiritual lights. Do you know why I'm called Duo Bao, but no one has ever seen me use a spiritual treasure? Because they are not spiritual treasures, but my junior brothers and sisters, the best friends of my master. They are not spiritual treasures, but my best friends that I have lost. So I swear that my body is their body and my flesh is their flesh. If they die, I, Duo Bao, will be their burial ground. If they live, I, Duo Bao, will be their body. Duo Bao thrust his hand into the void and tore apart the space of the incomplete heavenly cycle star array. A huge crack appeared in the void. His hands, which were infused with the inextinguishable innate spiritual light, thrust into the array and pulled the 9 star banners, causing them to flutter as if they were being torn apart. The sound of ripping cloth could be heard. Duo Bao thrust one hand out of the formation, and a giant hand that covered the sky reached into the monstrous water curtain and grabbed Demon King Jiao. As if he was grabbing a loach, Demon King Jiao was grabbed by the giant hand, and he desperately twisted his body. He grabbed the trident with his front claws and pointed it forward with all his might. The monstrous water curtain fell down, and the water of the 4 seas poured down on Duo Bao's body. But in front of the inextinguishable spiritual lights that were floating around his body, it was like a huge wave crashing down on him, giving him a bath. His body that was filled with the inextinguishable spiritual light remained motionless under the impact of the 4 seas. He grabbed Demon King Jiao and looked down at him as if he was looking at a small loach he had caught. Duo Bao squeezed slightly, and Demon King Jiao began to twist crazily. His tough dragon body was in intense pain, as if it was about to break inch by inch. As if he had gone crazy, he stabbed the trident toward Duo Bao's eyes. Duo Bao grabbed the trident with his other hand, and Demon King Jiao roared and whipped Duo Bao's right shoulder. Duo Bao was only small, and it was like he was flicking dust at him. The inextinguishable spiritual light on his body didn't even tremble. The trident groaned in Duo Bao's hand, and its spiritual light was trembling, on the verge of collapse, like a candle in the wind. The spiritual light in Duo Bao's hand spread, and under the resistance of the trident's spiritual light, he infused wisps of inextinguishable spiritual light into it. The demon flag in the Macaque King's hand suddenly trembled, and it broke free from the Macaque King's claws. It turned into a ray of spiritual light and escaped. Duo Bao didn't even look at it. He only continued to exert force in his hand, and the trident's spiritual light seemed to be heavily damaged. A palm print was left on the nearly indestructible body of the connate numinous treasure. It was Duo Bao's palm print, and it was inevitable that the palm print was filled with spiritual light. At that moment, the trident shone brightly, and the water of the 4 seas suddenly surged, forming a huge loop behind Duo Bao. It was as if the ruins of End had reappeared. Duo Bao grabbed the trident with his right hand and strangled Demon King Jiao's neck. He allowed the huge flood dragon's body to coil around his left hand like a sweet potato. He pressed Demon King Jiao's head against the top of the barren mountain, and the trident in his right hand directly pierced through Demon King Jiao's huge head, pinning it to the mountain rock. At that moment, Bull Demon King had already lashed Duo Bao's right shoulder dozens of times with his whip. At this time, the immovable force had finally accumulated to a terrifying level. It was as if the entire Kunlun mountain range was pressing on Duo Bao's shoulder, bearing the power of Kunlun on his shoulder. Duo Bao finally showed an expression of feeling the strength. He effortlessly bore the power of the Bull Demon King's mountain-driving iron whip. With a casual strike, the body forged by the innate, inextinguishable divine light was comparable to the thousands of strikes of the Bull Demon King's immovable force. With a casual strike, it was as if Kunlun had collapsed and smashed into the untainted land. Bull Demon King felt the entire space tremble and groan. He was like an ant standing in front of a mountain. The incomparably tyrannical power easily smashed the mixed iron mountain-driving whip in his hand. The connate numinous treasure that could drive mountains couldn't move the hand at all. An irresistible force came from his hand. The mountain-driving whip shook, causing his hands to ache. He couldn't hold it anymore and was directly sent flying. The mountain-driving whip shone brightly and suddenly flew back on its own. With the shocking momentum of splitting the endless mountains in the primitive land and the unwavering will of Bull Demon King, it met Duo Bao's strike. Bull Demon King roared angrily. His hands were already dripping with blood. This was caused by the force of Duo Bao's strike. But he blocked it. He managed to block the attack. This proved that the combined force of the mountain-driving whip and Bull Demon King was comparable to the power of Duo Bao's strike. At this time, Duo Bao was a little surprised and astonished. He looked at Old Bull approvingly. This time he retracted his fist. It wasn't as casual as before. His fist carried unparalleled power and hammered out. This time, Bull Demon King's immovable force carried the full strength he used to block Duo Bao. This time he exerted even more strength and burned all his power to meet it. The immovable force was praised by the greater One Divine Emperor. He believed that it was the power of Old Bull's will. Every time, the power would not dissipate. Instead, it would continue to be added. This meant that the power of Old Bull's punch was the sum of the power of his previous punches. The power of each punch would be carried out to the end. Previously, Old Bull and the mountain-driving whip had combined forces. Next, Duo Bao's attack contained the power of Duo Bao's attack. Now, it was the power of the previous attack. In addition, after Old Bull and the mountain-driving whip had gotten better, with the support of the incisive battle intent, it was an even more satisfying strike. And the next punch was the sum of the power of the previous two punches, plus the power of the next attack. If this continued, even if Old Bull's power far surpassed Old Bull's, as long as he did not make the first strike or used all his strength to kill Old Bull in the first few strikes, under the support of the unwavering fist intent, there would eventually be a strike where his power would be inferior to Old Bull's. Then he would be destroyed by the immovable fist, which was stronger and heavier than the last. But this time, Old Bull's fists directly cracked. The wounds on his fists were so deep that his bones could be seen. Duo Bao's fist and Bull Demon King's fist collided. The fist that was filled with the connate, inextinguishable spiritual light did not waver, but Old Bull's fists gave off a clear sound of bone fracturing. Drops of blood flowed down from the gaps of his fists. Rock Demon King roared. He spread his wings and extended his claws. Two towering claws grabbed at Duo Bao's back. Duo Bao did not look back, but the huge vortex behind him that seemed to be the ultimate tightened and sucked Rock Demon King in. Macaque King screeched anxiously at the side, scratching his ears and cheeks. Lion Camel King also roared angrily. He raised the Iron Mountain and smashed it towards Duo Bao. The Iron Mountain smashed onto Duo Bao's head, but it did not even leave a white mark. Duo Bao did not even look at them. It could be said that other than Bull Demon King, there was no one else in his eyes. Duo Bao retracted his fist, exerted some strength, and punched out again. Bull Demon King raised his fists. There was no fear in his eyes. Resolutely, he waved his fists and met the attack. This punch was much stronger than the previous one, but when the two fists collided, Old Bull's body still trembled violently. It was as if every inch of his bones was trembling. Most of his fists no longer had flesh and blood, but the white bones were still as hard as the bones of an old bull. Rock Demon King broke free from the whirlpool of the sea eye. His feathers were messy, and there were faint traces of blood. He was heavily injured. But when he saw Duo Bao stepping on the head of Demon King Jiao's corpse, he punched Bull Demon King into the barren mountain's huge rocks. Every inch of Bull Demon King's demonic body was collapsing. Then, under Old Bull's unwavering strength and absolute will, Bull Demon King was like a piece of iron that had been shattered by a huge force. With an astonishing will, he mended the broken pieces of iron together. Bull Demon King waved his fist at Duo Bao again. Rock Demon King roared angrily, "Big brother, run!" However, Old Bull turned a deaf ear to him. Seeing Old Bull taking the initiative to wave his fist at him, Many Treasures finally revealed a hint of a smile. He smashed down with his fist, and connate spiritual light surged. He finally began to truly use his own strength. Just as Demon Bull's fists touched, his entire arm swelled up with a bang. Every muscle that was like divine metal directly exploded, and his entire arm was only connected by a thread of skin and flesh. But Bull Demon King's right hand could not. Then he would attack with his left hand. Blood spurted out from all over his body and splattered on the barren mountain. Rock Demon King and Lion Camel King used all their strength, but they still could not leave a single mark on Duo Bao's body. Lion Camel King looked at Bull Demon King, who was still standing, and could not help but whimper, "Big brother, run!" In front of Heavenly Lord of Duo Bao, running is not embarrassing. The tainted blood that flowed out of Bull Demon King's orifices had already blurred his senses. But his next punch was still stronger than before. The stronger the punch, the stronger the recoil. Without a corresponding strong body, if the punch was received by the opponent, it would be no different from hitting oneself. What truly surprised Tai about Old Bull's unwavering strength was not that he could increase his strength every time. Instead, it was the firm and unparalleled willpower that Old Bull had when he used power that far exceeded his own. His willpower was not extinguished, and his body was not destroyed. The closer he was to collapse, the more powerful he was. As long as Bull Demon King's willpower was still burning, his next punch could ignore everything and overwhelm his previous strength. "What are you crying for?" Bull Demon King said in a low voice, "I can still punch like this." The next punch and the next punch. Bull Demon King was not wrong. In the end, his body was almost shattered like porcelain, but he still punched again and again. He was unwavering and seemed to be pure. There was no change at all. If it was the others, they would have already come up with hundreds of plans. They would have recognized the difference between them and Treasures of Duo Bao and searched for a chance to escape, or thought of ways to eliminate Treasures of Duo Bao's murderous intent. But Old Bull would not use other methods to deal with it. He would only walk in one direction, and then continue walking. The living beings in the surrounding billions of miles could already feel the huge commotion that was like the sun and moon colliding in the sky. Even on Mount Li, which was billions of miles away, the land of the mountain gods and the demonic cultivators looked in that direction. There was a pure power there that caused the entire untainted world to tremble. It was like the tremors that had spread throughout the untainted world when Mount Buzhou had collapsed. It was the purest and most straightforward kind of violence. Saint Mother of Mount Li sat cross-legged in the Three Pristines Hall and stared into the void. She looked in the direction of Treasures of Duo Bao. She no longer had a mocking smile on her face. Instead, there was a hint of seriousness. She looked at Bull Demon King's body that was riddled with holes. It could be said that the essence of his body had been completely shattered, as well as the burning willpower that seemed like it would never be extinguished. Finally, he was moved. In the end, even the connate, inextinguishable spirit light in Duo Bao's fist started to tremble. Duo Bao's power finally had a slight reaction. This was far from the end, but it could be said that Bull Demon King's fist had already entered the realm of Dara. His fist was already qualified to shake the connate, inextinguishable spirit light. At this moment, even Rock Demon King and Lion Camel King could see that Old Bull had already reached his limit. Or rather, from the first round of punches, Old Bull had already surpassed his limit in order to receive Dara's attack. The conventional limit had already been broken by Old Bull countless times. It was the unconventional limit. Every time Lion Camel King and the others felt that Old Bull could no longer fight, he would always be able to punch even stronger than before. But this time, perhaps he had really reached his limit. This was because Duo Bao's face revealed a look of pity. Bull Demon King's eyes had already been completely burned out. Other than the desire to fight, there was nothing left in his eyes. This was because a long time ago his punches did not allow him to think about anything other than the next punch. He had to use every bit of power for the next punch. Thus, he was like a machine, continuously punching and punching without any changes. In theory, many people could mock Old Bull's fighting style that had no chance of winning. But every time someone mocked this rigid and unchanging change, they would be shattered by Old Bull's punches. The mountain driving whip was already soaked in Bull Demon King's blood. Its black body was dyed dark red. It used every bit of its spiritual light. Originally, it could not be completely used by Dara, but after Old Bull surpassed his limit countless times, the mountain driving whip finally acknowledged him. For the next attack, the mountain driving whip shone with spiritual light as if it was burning. The black metal body of the whip was dyed with old marks. This old and heavy metal whip, if swung, could already break the heaviest earth veins under the untainted land. The Old Bull's gaze was indifferent, but it was abnormally focused. It was as if there was an unwavering force that gathered the power of his gaze. That kind of determination caused his gaze to be branded in the void without any magical powers. It could still be felt countless Yuanhui later. For the last time, the Demon Bull King waved his fist at the sky and tore apart the firmament. In the underworld, Monkey King sat on Jiao Rock, his eyes distant. In the Blood Sea, River Styx's gaze became a little lower, filled with interest. Above the chaos, a faint sigh came from. At this moment, the spiritual light in Duo Bao's fist finally trembled. A wound appeared on his fist. Duo Bao slowly wiped away the trace of blood and looked up at Old Bull, who was still standing in front of him. Although his expression was still cold, it was no longer disdainful. At that moment, Lion Camel King used the strongest strength in his life to smash the metal mountain. Rock Demon King used all his strength to slash at Duo Bao's eyes. Now, one of them was pressed down by the metal mountain, vomiting blood nonstop. A clear fingerprint appeared on the metal mountain. One's claws were twisted and his wings were broken. King Yu Yen was shaken out of the illusion. His entire demon body had almost become an illusion. The heaven enchanting crystal fell to the ground, already dim. Bull Demon King was still standing, his body no longer breathing. He used a voice that was almost inaudible to murmur, "Great Emperor, Old Bull can no longer carry you." But Old Bull did not disappoint you. Above the chaos, someone gently rang the bell, as if to send him off. Bull Demon King no longer breathed. Duo Bao sighed with his hands behind his back. "Great sage who pacifies heavens, Bull Demon King. I'll remember this. I can see your will." After saying that, he ignored the 3 dying great sages, Demon King Jiao's corpse on the ground, and Macaque King, who was at a loss. Finally, He looked deeply at Bull Demon King's body, as if he wanted to remember his appearance in his heart. Duo Bao turned and left, stepping on the rolling waves. The mountain-moving whip used up all its spiritual light and dimmed, like a piece of iron falling into the dust. Rock Demon King struggled to get up and wailed at the sky. A loud rock cry that reached the clouds rolled out and echoed in all directions. In this battle, of the 6 great sages of the demon race, 2 had died, 3 were seriously injured, and 1 had lost his will and courage. 5 spirit treasures were silent, and 1 had escaped. Only Monkey King's whereabouts were unknown, or he had disappeared in the underworld. The 7 great sages of the demon race would become history, and they would no longer be the leaders of the demon race. The attacker was Heavenly Lord of Duo Bao, Fan Wu Jia. Chapter 1348. Duo Bao descended the barren mountain alone. Behind him, the corpse of Bull Demon King stood as tall as the barren mountain. Duo Bao bowed slightly in the direction of Mountly and said, "Thank you for your help, junior sister. But you tricked my reincarnated body into being your junior brother. That doesn't count. Let's talk about it separately. I entered the sect earlier than you, so I am your senior brother. Junior sister is being mischievous again." Inside the Saint Mother's palace, Old Mother of Mountly pretended to spit on the ground and laughed. "How shameless of you to call yourself my senior brother!" Duo Bao walked down the mountain. With every step he took, a ray of spiritual light escaped from his body. After 13 steps in a row, there was only 1 ray of spiritual light left. Duo Bao bowed to it and said, "Fellow Taoist, go ahead. Now that I'm not in my whole body, it's not time to wake up from my previous life and realize the origin. There will be a day when we meet again. At that time, I will still need your help." The spiritual light nodded 3 times and escaped into the void, entering the treasure-snatching rock. After the spiritual light dissipated, Duo Bao returned to his original body. He was still looking at the cultivation of Tai. Even Fan Wu Jia was injured and his internal organs were not healed. His gaze gradually deepened and dimmed. After a moment, Fan Wu Jia suddenly shuddered and woke up. His eyes gradually focused from the blurry state he was in, and only then did he look around as if he had just woken up from his slumber. Fan Wu Jia first searched his entire body and found that he was not missing any parts. He then raised his head in confusion and said, "So my background is so great, it's actually—" When he thought of this, he was stunned. "Wait, who am I again?" Fan Wu Jia was shocked and lowered his head to think. "Before my consciousness went silent, I clearly shouted that name. How could I forget it now? It's like a mortal dreaming. The name is already at the tip of my tongue, but I can't remember it no matter what." Fan Wu Jia's primordial spirit revolved. The memory just now was like a dream, separated by a layer of gauze. He could not see it clearly or touch it. He frowned and realized that it was not a problem with his primordial spirit or that his consciousness was blinded. It seemed to be an instinctive protective measure, an instinctive mechanism to ensure that he would not be attacked. He sealed the memory and name that could confuse himself and lead to the Dao Dai in the future. When Fan Wu Jia turned around and saw the towering body of the Bull Demon King behind him, a giant with a bull's head and a bronze forehead, a bull's head and a human body, he looked like a demon god. Even though he seemed to have seen this scene before in his dreams, he still gave himself a fright. "I did this? So fierce?" Fan Wu Jia came back to his senses and said happily, "So I'm the one who hid the most. The Shui, 2 King Jati, and that righteous spy Jinyang Zi. They didn't hide as well as I did. So among the people from the ruins of End, I'm the most terrifying one. I'm also the one who kept a low profile and even lied to myself. Otherwise, I'm afraid the ruins of End would have been filled with rivers of blood." Fan Wu Jia clasped his hands behind his back, supporting his waist. He looked very confident, as if he had everything under control. Sparks of wisdom flickered in his eyes. "I've already obtained the postnatal Tao evolution. A true actor has to lie to himself to get a true immersive experience. Even the mastermind behind the scenes who manipulated my fate was better than me. With Junior Sister's help, I've escaped from his calculations. How lonely! In the field of acting, I'm already invincible. Fan Wu Jia let out a long sigh. He raised his head and stared at the sky for a very long time. Suddenly, he turned around and ran towards the top of the barren mountain where the Bull Demon King's devil body was located. He looked around and picked up the 9 broken banners from the crevices of the rocks that were not far away from him. Countless cracks and crevices had appeared on the barren mountain, revealing many divine gold and rare stones that were hidden deep within. Fan Wu Jia had thought of a way to pry them out. In the end, he collected some blood with strong demonic energy on the ground. Fan Wu Jia used his strength to pull the trident that was grazing the Jiao Dragon King's body. There was a handprint on the handle of the trident. This spirit treasure had lost all of its spirit light and was as dull as ordinary iron. It was just that it was unusually heavy. Fan Wu Jia exerted his strength for a long time, but he still couldn't pull it out. In the end, he could only pull out the Jiao Dragon King's body, the trident, and even the entire mountain, and put them into his sleeve. Fan Wu Jia looked at the huge body of the poisonous dragon. The thick blood essence, the tough tendons, the sturdy skin, and the dragon scales. He was so happy that he couldn't close his mouth. He took care of the Jiao Dragon King's body and drained it of its poisonous blood. Then he put it away together with the trident on its head. In the future, he would cut it up and refine it into a magical weapon. Finally, he scraped the surface of the ground that had been affected by the impact of the battle between Duo Bao and the Bull Demon King. The sand, stones, and soil that had been contaminated by the spirit chi of the great desolate lands had been transformed into some kind of strange metal soil. Fan Wu Jia looked at the body of the Bull Demon King with pity. In terms of materials, the body of the great sage of the demon clan was already one of the best spiritual materials in the primordial times. However, the body of the Bull Demon King had long been destroyed by the recoil of the immovable force. There was not a single trace of spirituality left in it. What was left was the absolute and brutal murderous aura that he had exuded when he fought to the end. His demonic body had already become one with the barren mountain. His fighting spirit would never be extinguished. In the future, it would become a mountain shaped like the head of a bull. Its body would become a strange stone that carried endless murderous aura. Even the divine weapons of the 9 heavens would not be able to destroy it. It would become a dangerous land in the primordial times. However, to Fan Wu Jia, it no longer had any meaning or value. Moreover, the Bull Demon King's body did not fall even though he was dead. Naturally, there was an imposing aura around him that made Fan Wu Jia unwilling to touch his remains. Therefore, even though Fan Wu Jia felt that it was a pity, he still let go of the remains. He kept his spoils of war and left behind the barren mountain that had suddenly become shorter. He turned around and flew in the direction of Mount Li. In the hall of 3 Pristines in the Saint Mother's Palace of Mount Li, Fan Wu Jia and the Saint Mother of Mount Li, who was dressed like a kind old woman, sat opposite each other. The Saint Mother said, "Those 6 little demons have been loitering in front of my Mount Li. I have long wanted to teach them a lesson. However, because of my sworn brother, I could not do it, even though he did not have any friendship with those 6, and they were even guarded against each other. If I were to make a move, it would not look good on him." Fan Wu Jia asked doubtfully, "The 7 great sages are only at the level of primordial immortals. Even the strongest, the great sage who pacifies heaven, is no match for you. So, why are you willing to be courteous and become sworn brothers with the great sage equaling heaven?" The Saint Mother of Mount Li shook her head and said, "The 7 great sages are but a joke. Only that old bull is worth a look. The rest are mediocre. Only the Monkey King is an exception. His name is Demon Monkey, and he is one of the 4 chaotic monkeys, the descendant of the Chaos Demon Ape. The Chaos Demon Ape is his follower. Just by hearing this name, you can tell that he is related to the demonic sect. So he is actually a war god of the demonic sect under Patriarch River Styx. His combat power is not inferior to ours. His background is secretive, and his whereabouts are mysterious. He rarely made a move in the primitive universe. Since the creation of the world, he has made a few moves in secret, but the results were always shocking. In the past, Ro and River Styx fought for the power of the demonic sect. Many of Ro's old subordinates died mysteriously or disappeared without a trace. The Monkey King of the demon race is just one of his identities. In the past, when Nuwa created humans, I asked Empress Nuwa for a favor and became the ancestor of the hominoids. I obtained the Saint Mother of Mount Li and the legacy of the human ancestor. In the future, when the human race ruled the world, I had a legitimate reason to educate the demon race and turn them into humans, achieving the merit of being the human ancestor. As for that monkey, he won the favor of Empress Nuwa and gave him an incomplete sky-mending stone, allowing him to transform into one of the 4 chaotic monkeys, the spiritual stone monkey. In that case, we are both from the Nuwa Dao orthodoxy. He is the incomplete sky-mending stone, and I am an ancient hominoid. We both have the appearance of apes, and we are fated to be siblings. Therefore, when he was roaming the pugilistic world, he gathered 4 fellow Taoists who also had the appearance of apes and extraordinary backgrounds to become sworn siblings. These people all have extraordinary cultivation bases, so I will tell you about their origins. In the future, when you see them, you can also mention my name and ask for their favor. The Monkey King of the demon race, the heavenly devil crown prince of the devil Tao, born in the direct lineage of the River Styx, the unparalleled Monkey King. There's also the Huai River's Shaman Jichi, the primordial water ape, also a leader of the demon race. The last one is the omnipotent sage. This person's origins are unfathomable. He said, "Since the creation of the world, I have been in the yin and yang. I have taught the 3 realms a great deal of energy. The 4 divine paths are afraid. The ghost soldiers of the 5 mountains are angry. The universe is in chaos. The 7 underworlds and the Big Dipper are hard to distinguish. The 8 worlds have no respect. The 9 heavens can't catch me. There are 100,000 devil lords. I think he must have an extraordinary background." Saint Mother of Mount Li said with a smile, "These people will still give me some face, but if Junior Brother makes a big fuss, they might not continue to give me face. Junior Brother, if you attack them in the future, you don't have to hold back. It's just a matter of face. There's no need for us to be brothers and sisters." Fan Wu Jia shook his head and sighed. "There's no conflict. It's just that I heard from the Bull Demon King that a few of my old acquaintances were captured by the Monkey King, and I don't know when they will be released." He thought of the heavenly devil blood, transmuting blade in his sleeve, and said with a smile, "When Senior Sister lent the sea calming divine pearl, you should have seen them, right?" Saint Mother of Mount Li nodded. "One of them is the direct lineage of the blood devil, and the other is the orthodoxy of the killing devil. How can Yuan-Tu, the one who holds the sword, ignore them? And that yin-yang demon master, he's really making a big fuss in the underworld. I think a few of the 10 halls Yanluo will die in his hands." Fan Wu Jia was stunned. "I know the direct lineage of the blood devil and the orthodoxy of the killing devil. But who is this yin-yang demon master? Is it Zheng Yangzi?" Saint Mother of Mount Li smiled. "I don't know who Zheng Yangzi is. I only know that the thief is a good friend of Junior Brother Zhao Gongming. He's Celestial Venerable Dara in this era, and his title is Celestial Venerable Yuanyu. Later on, when he was about to attain Tao, he fell into the trap of Qiu, Shou Celestial. Junior Brother Zhao Gongming even asked me to plead for him. Later on, I heard that in order to get rid of the trap, he joined the demonic path and became the yin-yang demon master." Fan Wu Jia's face turned pale as he said, "Sect Master Celestial Maiden, Taoist 3 poisons, the righteous path Spijingyang Zi, turns out to be the devil path's yin-yang demon master, Dara Heavenly Venerable Yuanyu." If only I hadn't deceived myself as well. I'm really not as good as him. Amazing, amazing. The ones following me are the devil Dao Shui Tu King, the killing life sex sect master, Yin Yang demon master. The mastermind who schemed against me is about to appear. Fan Wujie's face was as dark as still water. He stared at the void in front of him for a long time before he raised his head and said, "Senior sister, you don't have to hide it from me any more. Why don't we say a name together?" Saint Mother of Mount Lishan nodded. The two of them spoke in unison. Both of them said in unison, "River, Styx Patriarch, slaughtering demon ancestor." Fan Wujie still wanted to say something, but Saint Mother of Mount Lishan shook her head and said, "Teacher's disciples are experts in refining treasures. Since you've taken the dragon tendon of Demon King Jiao, why don't you give it to me? I'll refine a type of acquired spirit treasure according to the shape that teacher taught me. Acquired spirit treasure techniques are amazing, and the best ones are not inferior to innate spirit treasures. However, although this dragon tendon came from a venomous Jiao in the primordial realm, its quality is too low, and it can't be refined into a top-grade acquired spirit treasure. I have a few shapes here. Choose one." This acquired spirit treasure imitates the innate spirit treasure immortal binding rope. There are demon binding rope, immortal binding rope, demon binding rope, and demon sealing chain, each with their own restraints. Fan Wujie thought for a while, then offered up the dragon tendon. He smiled and said, "Gods and immortals are one. I'm willing to choose one that has more restraints." "Immortal binding rope, then." Saint Mother of Mount Lishan smiled and said, "It's just that you can't bind the direct disciples of the mystic door. If you meet those from the Chan sect, you'll be able to break free easily. You mustn't be careless because of that." Fan Wujie nodded and said, "Those few are probably celestial venerable Dara already. How brave would I be to take them?" Saint Mother of Mount Lishan smiled and said, "That's true. I forgot that you're not the same as before. You used to love using acquired spirit treasures to take care of them, and even celestial venerable Dara had to suffer loss. Those few have some resentment towards you. Everyone has a grudge against each other." Fan Wujie's heart skipped a beat, and he thought to himself, "Who exactly am I to have taken care of the direct disciples of the mystic door and the few Dara from the Chan sect?" Chapter 1349. Yuan Yu and the others arrived at the foot of Mount Li, looking at the magnificent Saint Mother's palace. Yuan Yu stopped and said in a low voice, "Brother Wujie is here. I can feel the aura of the Yuan Yu Golden Bridge fragment." Ajadi closed his eyes and sensed for a while. Then he opened his eyes and said, "I can feel the aura of Yuan Tu's sword aura too. Strange. The aura of Yuan Tu's sword aura has changed. We, the lifeless cult, have been worshipping Ancestor Yuan day and night, so we are very familiar with the sword aura. But why do I feel scared when I sense the two remaining sword auras?" Shui Tu widened his eyes and said, "No matter if Fan Wujie is dead or alive, I have to get my heavenly, demonic blood divine saber back." He scolded, "I don't have a saber this time, so I'm in a mess." "Who cares? Just go and knock on the door." Shui Tu took the lead and knocked on the door of the Saint Mother's palace. Soon, a maidservant in green opened the door slowly and poked her head out. "Who is it? Why don't you come in from the side door?" Seeing that it was a burly, angry, and vulgar black servant who was knocking on the door, followed by two gloomy characters who did not look like good people, he could not help but frown and say, "Who are you? Why are you knocking on the door? Do you know whose Taoist field this goddess's palace belongs to?" Yuan Yu pushed Shui Tu away, cupped his fists, and said, "We are the subordinates of the Monkey King, the sworn brother of the Saint Mother. We are here to visit you. Our families are related, so we often visit each other. Is there a little brother called Fan Wujie in the palace? He is our good friend, and he came here before you. If you are unlucky, just ask him." The maidservant in green was doubtful. When did the Saint Mother have a sworn brother called the Monkey King? Why haven't I heard of him? Since you come and go often, why haven't I seen him? And Fan Wu Jie is the master of the palace. The Saint Mother has acknowledged him as her junior brother. How dare I trouble her? Your words are full of loopholes. What is your intention? The Shui, 2 kings, said casually, What kind of background does your Saint Mother have? Goddess Nviwa was the first to create human beings, and she became friends with the Monkey King at a very early time. You're just a little demon, and you're not even a Yuan Hui yet. How would you know about such things that happened at the beginning of the world? Just go and report. Do you think I would lie to you? Even if we trick you into going in, how would we dare to act rashly with the Holy Mother around? Do you want to die? The green-clothed maid looked at him suspiciously before whispering, Wait a moment, I'll go ask someone. Not long after, she brought another girl in green clothes with her sword and pushed open the door aggressively. It was the green snake, Little Green. When Little Green saw them, she was so angry that her eyebrows stood up. She shouted sternly, So it's you demons. Return my sister. Yuan Yu smiled and said, Your sister has been rescued by us and is no longer wanted by the Celestial Court. Now, she has been invited to the Heavenly Palace by Celestial Emperor Donghua. When the father-in-law and daughter-in-law meet, I'm afraid something good is about to happen. This is a good thing for everyone. Why are you angry, lady? Little Green was so angry that tears flowed out of her eyes. She said sternly, What nonsense are you talking about? My sister is as pure as ice and as clean as jade. What marriage and good is about to happen? You must have seen my sister's beauty and kidnapped her to please the Celestial Court's Crown Prince Mu, taking her by force, bullying a weak girl like my sister. What kind of ability is that? Come with me to see the Holy Mother and explain. Yuan Yu raised his hand and said, This matter is not urgent. Is Brother Wu Jie here? Hearing this, Xiaoqing's face revealed a strange expression. She muttered a few words and said, That brother of yours has a very good, white-faced appearance. I don't know what kind of trick he used, but he tricked my Holy Mother Goddess into recognizing him as her younger brother. Now, he is our Holy Mother Palace's young master. She rolled her vertical pupils and fiercely stuck them in her eyes. Only then did she reluctantly say, Come with me. The few of them entered through the door and passed through a few winding corridors before coming to a quiet and elegant side hall. Just as they arrived at the front of the hall, the blood-soaked demon sovereign shouted, My heavenly, demonic blood god Saber is in there. That kid Fan Wu Jie can't have gone far. Just as the Shui 2 king was about to rush in, he was pulled by Little Green. Little Green cleared her throat and said softly, Young master, your old acquaintance wishes to see you. He is waiting outside the hall. They heard a voice from inside the hall. Come in. Little Green then pushed the door open and led them in. As soon as they stepped into the hall, they saw a young man sitting on a cattail hassock with his legs crossed. He had a hairpin in his hand, a purple robe with the 8 trigrams, and a golden silk ribbon tied around his waist. He had a string of 3,000 green silk strands in his arms, and he was wearing a pair of cloud-treading shoes made of heavenly worm silk. He looked elegant and refined. He looked like a young man of high Dao. After Yuan Yu and the others entered, he slowly stood up, raised his head, and turned around to face the crowd. His noble aura was overbearing and bright, making Shui 2 and the others unable to open their eyes for a moment. Shui 2 squinted his eyes and saw Fan Wu Jie from the corner of his eyes. He said happily, Fourth brother, thank goodness you are not dead. Quickly return the heavenly demonic blood god saber that I lent you last time. This time, I have caused a great disaster in the underworld, and I needed to save my life. Fan Wu Jie smiled and said, Brother Shui 2, what are you saying? Wasn't the heavenly demonic blood god saber given to me by you? Shui 2 said confidently, Originally, I predicted that you would face a calamity in the underworld, so I lent you my most precious sword. Now that you've been saved by a benefactor, your calamity has passed, but I'm unlucky to block the calamity for you. Now that the Jianghu is in an emergency, Brother Wujia, you won't watch me die tragically because I don't have a suitable weapon, right? Fan Wu Jia looked left and right and said nonchalantly, I left the saber somewhere else and did not bring it with me. Let's talk about it next time. Shui Tu-King laughed coldly and said, Brother Wu Jia, you are so forgetful. Isn't this a divine saber? As soon as he said that, he chanted a spell and activated the 7 mutated heavenly demons on the heavenly demonic blood god saber. At this time, a saber light bloomed from Fan Wu Jia's sleeve, wrapped in a blood-red light, and was about to rush out of the world in his sleeve. Fan Wu Jia pushed the purple gold crown on his head, and a green light turned into tens of thousands of Lianhua flowers that bloomed and fell down. The heavenly demons that were in the blood god saber were surrounded by the falling Lianhua flowers, and they immediately fell silent. No matter how hard Shui Tu-King tried to activate the spell, they did not respond. Shui Tu-King's face turned red, and Fan Wu Jia looked left and right and said, Where is the divine saber? If I find it, I will definitely return it to Brother Shui Tu. Oh, right. Fan Wu Jia straightened his back and said with a smile, Now that I have acknowledged Saint Mother of Mount Li as my senior apprentice sister, we are of the same generation. You are the juniors of Saint Mother, so it is not appropriate for you to address yourselves as brothers. Ha ha ha. Shui Tu-King gritted his teeth and squeezed his voice out. Then, Brother Wu Jia, do you think it is better to address me like this? I heard that you are the subordinates of my senior apprentice sister, Monkey King. Ha ha. The disciples of the heavenly demon crown prince are indeed extraordinary. Senior apprentice sisters, golden orchid brothers, are also my golden orchid brothers. Big Brother Great Sage has a group of subordinates like you. How about this? Just follow my brother monkey and call me Little Old Master. Shui Tu-King was so angry that he was ready to spit at Fan Wu Jia. Tui, you call yourself Little Old Master. However, he suppressed his anger and looked at Fan Wu Jia's body, which was filled with spiritual light and had the quality of a spirit treasure. Although it was an acquired spirit treasure, it was extraordinary in nature. In the primordial era, Fan Wu Jia was luxurious, and in the future it would be even more luxurious. Fan Wu Jia felt like he had eaten a lemon, and his teeth fell back and his stomach turned sour. Shui Tu-King thought to himself, What's so great about having a generous senior apprentice sister? In the underworld, I was also someone who was bestowed the 12th grade red lotus of fire by the demon ancestor. You are so rich, and yet you still owe me a heavenly, demonic blood god saber. Where is your brotherhood? He did not think about the evil thoughts he had when he gave away the heavenly, demonic blood god saber. Yuan Yu stood up and laughed. Brother Wu Jia, it is a great fortune for you to have Saint Mother as your senior apprentice sister. The heavenly, demonic blood god saber and whatnot are all small matters. Why talk so much between brothers? The most important thing now is the heaven court. Fan Wu Jia said faintly, Yin Yang Demon Master is right. Back then, the Demon Master endured the pain and gave me an immortal herb, which ruined the Demon Master's future. Sigh. So the Demon Master is the Lord of Dara. Fan Wu Jia smiled coldly and said, Back in the ruins of returning, the Demon Master did not panic when facing the group of Dara. Instead, he toyed with them in the palm of his hand while he stood aloof from them and laid out a shocking plan. I thought there was no such thing as the Lord of Dara in the universe, but I did not expect that the old Taoist who was swindling people in North Ean City and asking for money in the market was the Lord of Dara, whom all the Tao lords in the universe had heard of but never had the chance to meet. Yuan Yu smiled and said, If you say that I was intentionally deceiving you, didn't you, Wu Jia? deceive yourself as well." Fan Wu-jia was speechless for a moment. Then he suddenly laughed and took out the heavenly, demonic blood divine blade from his sleeve. He handed it to the Shui-Tu king and said, "I was just joking with Brother Shui Tuesday. Now that I no longer need this divine blade to protect me, I will not take it away from you." The blood-soaked demon lord received the divine blade in a daze and carefully examined it for a while. Then he licked the blade and confirmed that Fan Wu-jia had really returned the blade to him. He kissed the blade happily and then put it away while laughing. The few of them looked at each other and smiled. Then they threw the complicated plans of the past to the back of their minds and started again. Fan Wu-jia invited Yuanyu and the others to sit down. He bowed and said, "I already know about the matter between Bai Sujin and Prince Mu. Now that Celestial Emperor Dong Hua has invited them to the Heavenly Palace, Prince Mu's Yuan Shen has not recovered, and Bai Sujin cannot explain herself. Moreover, because of the death of Prince Bo Jun, Celestial Emperor Xian will definitely cause trouble, and the Heavenly Court will be in trouble again. Senior Sister said that Emperor Zhuanqu wants to cut off the earth and heaven and take all cultivators above the heaven immortal realm to the heavenly realm. He will be under the Heavenly Court's watch. From now on, other than the gods who operate the laws, no immortals will be left. As long as a mortal reaches the level of a heaven immortal, there will be a heavenly tribulation that will force him to ascend to the heavenly realm. Mount Buzhou has been broken. Of the 5 poles that connect the heavenly realm and the primordial continent, only the Kunlun ruins, the Phoenix Undying volcano in the South Pole, the Buddhist land in the West Pole, and the heavenly tree in the East Pole are left. Now, Emperor Zhuanqu wants to cut off the 4 poles so that humans and gods can't come and go. Many great Daos are hidden in the heavenly realm. The reason why the demon race is allowed to wreak havoc in the primordial world, the conflict between humans and demons, and the conspiracy of many holy lands and sects is to lure the snake out of its hole and cut off the foundation of these forces. In the future, the heavenly realm will isolate the nourishment of the sun, moon, and stars of the primordial world, collect the earth, root, dragon vein, and cut off the great Tao of heaven and earth. After establishing the rules of the earth and heaven, the primordial world is no longer suitable for cultivators above the heaven immortal realm to cultivate. If they want to find a way forward, they have to ascend to the heavenly realm, with the heavenly court's ruling ability over the heavenly realm. After isolating this portion of capable cultivators from the foundation of the primordial world, wouldn't the heavenly court be able to do whatever it wants? Emperor Zhuanqu's move has been planned for a long time. It's a true plan to exterminate the primordial world. After it's established, no matter if it's the mystic door or the Buddha sect, even if we fiend Tao attack, we can forget about shaking the rule of the heavenly court. The Emperor Zhuanqu wants all living beings to be of one mind and be dragons. I don't know if he will succeed. However, Emperor Zhuanqu is connected to the earth and heaven, isolating humans and gods. He will rule the primordial world in a more hidden way. At the same time, he will isolate the connection between the mighty figures who have the ability to threaten the heavenly court's rule and the foundation of the human world, causing the heaven immortals in the primordial world to be impure. It's definitely a ruthless ruling. Senior Sister also praised Emperor Zhuanqu for his shrewd and ruthless methods. The earth and heaven connection is a wonderful way to establish the rule of the heavenly court. However, if he wants to use the earth and heaven connection, he needs to reaffirm the law of heaven, clean up the heavenly rules, strengthen the difference between humans and gods, and solidify the status and class. The love between Prince Mu and Bai Sujin would normally cause a lot of discussion in the heavenly court. At the critical moment of the earth and heaven connection, it's even more impossible for Emperor Zhuanqu to tolerate it. If Zhuanqu wants to show his determination to use the earth and heaven connection, what better way to establish the authority of the new law of heaven than to attack the son of Celestial Emperor Donghua? Prince Mu and Bai Sujin will definitely become sacrifices for Zhuanqu's reform when they go to the heavenly court this time. Fan Wujie sighed and said, "It seems that the demon ancestor behind you doesn't like the idea of using the earth and heaven connection. That's why he created an opportunity for us to intervene." At this time, little Qing suddenly knelt on the ground and said, "Please, young master, save my sister." Fan Wujie was speechless, but Yuan Yu said slowly, "We all know that the earth and heaven connection will not succeed. When the bell rings, the heavenly court will collapse, the primordial world will shatter, and a new era will come. Also, we need this bell to return to the sea of chaos and finally to Dara heaven. Why didn't Celestial Emperor Dong Hua save Prince Mu?" Shui Tu King frowned and said, "If he asked, Emperor Zhuanqi would have given him face. Also, we all know that rumors are just rumors. Although it's difficult to clarify them, it's not impossible. Didn't you kill Prince Bo Jun to make this rumor true?" Fan Wujie said with his hands behind his back, "Prince Mu can explain, but now he can't. Isn't that also you're doing?" With Prince Bo Jun dead, Celestial Emperor Xian will definitely take the opportunity to make things difficult for Prince Mu, Bai Sujin, and the others. They must give Celestial Emperor Zi Yang an explanation. Also, is there a need for us to go to Dara heaven? Fan Wujie looked at Yuan Yu and gave him a smile that both of them understood. Fan Wujie slowly turned around and looked at little Qing and said, "Are you begging me to save your sister?" Little Qing bit her lip and nodded and said, "Please, young master, have mercy." Fan Wujie stood up and smiled. "Then let's go. There are many karmic entanglements, and we are destined to go to the heavenly court. Why don't we go see Bai Sujin's Prince Mu first? Now that a storm is brewing in the heavenly court, if we barge in recklessly, who knows how many undercurrents and manipulators we will attract. Emperor Heaven, Demon Ancestor, 3 Pure Ones, Demon Emperor of the Heavenly Court. What are these people planning?" Chapter 1350. Fan Wujie was a decisive person. He didn't pack his things and carried all his belongings with him. He left Saint Mother Li's guard of honor, the flying carriage, the dragon and phoenix carriage, and the crown in the hall. It was clear that he wanted to leave. Fan Wujie flicked his horsetail whisk and was about to close the door to join Yuan Yu and the others. Shui Tu and the rest watched as Fan Wujie left with a light pack. When they reached the entrance, they saw Saint Mother of Mount Li waiting for them. Seeing Fan Wujie rushing over, Saint Mother of Mount Li rebuked. "Junior brother, you didn't even tell senior sister that you were leaving. Are you going to leave just like that?" Fan Wujie begged, "Senior sister, please don't blame us. We were in a hurry to save people and were afraid that you would keep us, so we didn't dare to tell you." Saint Motherly smiled. "You won't even be able to touch the borders of the celestial heavens. Senior sister still has some face in the celestial heavens. If you go with my guard of honor, you will be able to see Celestial Emperor Donghua and enter the celestial palace. Otherwise, ordinary people won't even be able to enter when they see the celestial emperor. The underworld has the gates of hell, but doesn't the celestial heavenly court have the southern heavenly gate?" Fan Wujie hurriedly bowed and said, "Junior brother, you are wrong. Thank you for your guidance, senior sister. You don't have to say that, considering our friendship." Saint Mother of Mount Lishan ordered people to summon the ceremonial guards. Dozens of heavenly maidens, demonic spirits, immortals, divine generals, and fierce warriors, all of whom had the cultivation of golden immortal Tao lords, lined up in rows. Saint Mother of Mount Lishan held Fan Wujie's hand and led him to the front of the carriage. There were 4 divine flood dragons pulling the dragon carriage. Fan Wujie almost didn't dare to lift his leg when he saw the dragon carriage. The 4 flood dragons were not dragons of the 4 seas, but of the primordial dragon species. Their bloodline was even more ancient. Don't be fooled by their strange appearance. In terms of bloodline purity, the dragon Prince Fan Wujie had seen in the Era of Heavens was a bastard compared to them. Demon King Jiao was the scariest dragon Fan Wujie had ever seen. However, the cultivation of the flood dragons pulling the dragon chariot that the goddess of Mount Lishan used was not inferior to him. Of course, these were only the legs that pulled the chariot. If they were to fight, they were far from being a match for a ruthless character like Demon King Jiao. Even so, it was already terrifying enough. Behind the 4 flood dragons was a bronze carriage, and on both sides of the carriage were fish guards with leopard heads and fish bodies, with a pair of wings on their backs. Saint Mother of Mount Lishan smiled and said, "This dragon carriage is a little crude. I still use the phoenix carriage that Queen Mother of the West gave me. However, that carriage is the one I use daily, so it's a little heavy on cosmetics. Also, the green birds that pull the carriage are naughty and not steady enough. With your current cultivation, you still can't suppress them. So, Junior Marshal Brother, please make do with it." The Shui 2 King's jaw dropped. He stared at the chariot and mumbled, "If this is called being wrong, then what are we? A country bumpkin from the countryside? It's the mystic door that knows how to play. I've been in the blood sea for so many years, but I've never seen such extravagance." The Shui 2 King turned and asked Yuan Yu, "Yin Yang Demon Master, do you have such extravagance?" Yuan Yu said with a straight face, "Even with all my wealth, I can't afford even a fraction of this ceremonial procession." The Ajadi sighed and said, "As expected, our lifeless cult is just a bunch of poor swordsmen. Our cult's foundation can't even compare to that dragon carriage, and this is even if they don't want it. If we don't count the projection of Patriarch Yuan-Tu that we invited, the green birds that pull the chariot can probably wipe out our cult. The goddess of Mount Lishan is indeed an incarnation of an ancient god. Her wealth can probably be compared to the entire demon cult." Ancient god. Yuan Yu looked up to the sky and sighed. "Compared to the ancient god, the demon cult is just a bunch of poor bandits, and the mystic door is just a poor Taoist priest with empty sleeves. The ancient god is the real rich." There was a 9-colored canopy on the dragon carriage, and there were jade ladies holding palm leaf fans on both sides of the canopy. The Shui too had an illusion that if the jade ladies holding the palm leaf fans took out 2 or 3 of them, the Shui too would be in a mess. It really wasn't an illusion. The 2 jade palm leaf fans were made from Kunlun's spiritual roots. It was said that they were acquired spiritual roots that grew from the innate spiritual roots of the palm leaf fans that the great Empress of the West had plucked. When the goddess of Mount Lishan went on patrol, there were golden boys and jade ladies holding the fans behind her. There were also people holding incense, burners, canopies, and a whole band. The goddess of Mount Lishan gave Fan Wujie a set of her extravagance. The ceremonial procession came down. In front, there was a divine general leading the way. There were divine swords, iron whips, and bronze hammers. They were all divine weapons of the 9 heavens. They had unfathomable power and could easily shatter the heavens. In the future, they were spiritual treasures that even Taoists could only dream of. Then there was the brocade banner. There were lianhua, shaped, brocade, cloud-shaped canopies, and banners. With a wave, there would be endless, auspicious clouds and heavenly flowers falling. In the memory of Shui too, there was a Taoist in the era of heavens who used the 10,000-year-old clouds that had been accumulated in the white cloud realm for countless years. He used his magic power to collect them day and night and made them into cloud silk. He then ordered the most dexterous female cultivators in the white cloud realm to weave them. He used the power of the realm and the 10,000-year-old clouds that had been accumulated in the white cloud realm for countless years to make a golden cloud banner. It was known as the #1 defensive treasure in the heavens. When the banner was unfolded, no matter how many Taoists attacked it, it would not budge at all. It could also release billions of auspicious clouds to protect the realm. It was the treasure that guarded the realm of the white cloud realm. However, compared to the brocade banner in the ceremonial procession, or the 3-layered banner, or the cloud formed by the feathers of the spiritual birds and colorful phoenixes, or the lianhua shaped banners, it could not win at all. Behind them were the treasure vase oddities, innate spirit roots that were extremely rare and precious even in the prehistoric times were planted in the triple brilliance holy water. They were stored in beautiful jade, gold, and silver vases. Every vase contained the power to nurture. During the heavenly era, they could produce a steady stream of 10,000-year-old spirit herbs. They were supreme treasures that could suppress the foundations of the great sections, not to mention the other instruments such as the pipa, flute, and long drum. There were 8 musicians, and all of them were the incarnations of heavenly maidens. These heavenly maidens had attached themselves to the Ajadi matriarch many eras ago. These heavenly maidens could attach themselves to the great path of the great mediums. As the symbol of the great path of the ancient gods, they were born by attaching themselves to the great path. They were immortal and indestructible. As long as the great path of the great mediums was not damaged, they would not be destroyed either. It could be said that it was another kind of immortality. However, it was also because of this that they could not be counted as a kind of living being. Instead, they cultivated themselves into a kind of appearance. Therefore, although the ancient gods were all alone and isolated, and once the celestial court was gone, they were easy targets to bully. However, in their era, countless living beings worshipped them and worshipped them. They cultivated and worshipped them, and in the end, they were all assimilated into the great path of the ancient gods. Any ancient god was equivalent to a universe, a kingdom, and a celestial court. They brought their own believers and living beings to worship them. They were immortal and indestructible, and they protected their believers. Those immeasurable living beings and countless believers all lived in the kingdom of the ancient gods and became a part of the divine path. They were not living beings, but they had their own consciousness. It could be said that they cultivated themselves to become a part of the ancient gods. In the era of the ancient gods, the highest goal of cultivation was to become a part of the gods. Even the ancient gods did not have their own consciousness. Their own consciousness was just a taint, not to mention the cultivators who attached themselves to the innate gods. It was only after Laozi comprehended the Tao and created the mystic door that there was cultivation, the concept of self, the immortality of immortals, the venerable Dara, and the cultivators who pursued eternity and transcendence generation after generation. Otherwise, why would the Ajadi matriarch, the primordial heavenly king, and the other great emperors of the ancient gods join the mystic door when they were doing well? Yuan Yu sighed. The beauty sect that he protected was actually the cultivation method of the ancient god era that was modified with the concept of the mystic door. The beauty sect's unique great path of heavenly maidens allowed them to attach themselves to the strong and mighty for their cultivation. However, it did not harm their own consciousness. This was to get rid of the consequences of the ancient god era where they ignored themselves and regarded the gods as the supreme pursuit. Now, the strongest heavenly maidens of the beauty sect were at the level of those heavenly maidens that the goddess of Mount Lishan relied on. These heavenly maidens were only one step away from Dara, but it was like a natural moat. It was a step that they could never cross. They were only a little bit away from Dara, but they were even further away from this realm than mortals. Yuan Yu sighed as he recalled the future of the beauty sect's heavenly maidens who relied on him to protect them. The heavenly maidens cultivated the art of enchantment and influenced the heaven and earth. Therefore, they were easily influenced by the heaven and earth and the external devil. This was because the heavenly maiden's Tao was the same as the gods in Tao. It was a dharma of Tao integration. Even though it had adopted the concept of the mystic door and modified it, there were still many flaws left. It was difficult to attain the Tao of Dara. Since Laozi created the mystic door, although Dara lost me and the Tao was contaminated, the heavenly maidens did not even have the concept of self. However, in the era of the ancient gods, there was not even the concept of self. Consciousness and self were just a kind of postnatal taint. It was the thoughts of living beings that pulled down the Tao from the supreme realm, turning it into gods and ancient gods. Without the self, there is no Tao transformation, there is no loss of self. The highest realm of cultivation for post-celestial beings is to turn oneself into a god, to become a part of a certain side of the great Tao. Those below, such as the goddess of heaven, will accompany the god and become a part of the divine court, using her divine might to rule over them. Those who split the divine authority and assist the god, becoming a side of the great Tao that symbolizes the god, becoming the most superior of the gods, using their own will to taint the ancient gods, becoming one with the god and becoming a god. But that wasn't cultivating to become a god. Rather, it was letting the god become you. It was only when Laozi tainted the great Tao, pulling down the heavenly king of primordial beginning, the heavenly king of numinous treasure, and the great Tao itself, turning them into the heavenly lord of primordial beginning, the heavenly lord of numinous treasure, and the heavenly lord of Tao Da. Only then could the ancient gods truly live for themselves. They were not the incarnations of the great Tao, but people who had fallen from the great Tao. The mystic door didn't replace the ancient gods because Laozi was invincible and had defeated many ancient god emperors and Reverend Pengu. It was because the ancient gods had betrayed Laozi. They wanted to live, not exist. Therefore, whether it was chaos, negligence, Empress Hua, Emperor Shi, or Hutu and the Torch Dragon, they were no longer simple ancient gods. They cultivated the Tao of the mystic door and were the ancient gods who agreed with the philosophy of the mystic door. If there was a real ancient god in the world, the embodiment of the great Tao, it would be the ancient god Emperor Heaven, who is known as the Imperial Heaven along with Queen Hutu and created the Pango era together with Hutu. Or they called him God Hao Tian. God Hao Tian's true self had not fallen. He was the real God, a part of the heavenly Tao, an existence that symbolized the great Tao of heaven. His main consciousness didn't have a self, but was truly fair and selfless, as vast as the heavenly Tao. The heavenly Tao in the prehistoric universe referred to Hao Tian himself. However, the consciousness of the heavenly Tao would also be tainted. In order to prevent the tainted self from becoming selfish and unwilling to return to the merciless, vast existence, the heavenly Tao split its self-consciousness into an embodiment. The heavenly Tao split its self-consciousness into an incarnation. He was the heavenly emperor, but he was not the heavenly Tao, nor was he the most boundless and selfless heaven. This embodiment had a self and would not return to the heavenly Tao to prevent it from tainting the heavenly Tao. It could be said that he was the godhood of the Tao of heaven, in order to prevent postnatal living beings from tainting the Tao of heaven with their understanding of the heavens, their worship of the heavens, and their worship of the heavens. Therefore, the heavenly Tao didn't have a godhead from the beginning. The ancient gods were still the godheads of the great Tao, but God Hao Tian, or the heavenly Tao, knew the pure Tao from the beginning. His godhead split off and became God Hao Tian. Therefore, when the mystic door was created, the godhead became tainted, and the ancient gods became a mixture of humans and gods. This change couldn't affect the heavenly Tao at all, because it was only the embodiment of the godhead of the heavenly Tao that was tainted. This embodiment of the godhead was Emperor Jun. God Hao Tian was Emperor Jun, and God Hao Tian was the heavenly Tao. He was heaven itself, and his position was special. But Emperor Jun wasn't the heavenly Tao. Was heaven still heaven when it had a self and a godhead? The heavenly Tao was the wish of all beings. It wasn't willing to accept a fight between gods, let alone a more egoistic and selfish personality. Therefore, God Hao Tian was respected as the heavenly Tao. The great mediums respected him as the heavenly Tao and a part of the great Tao, because he was an existence that was revered by all beings on behalf of the heavenly Tao. But he wasn't regarded as the heavenly Tao itself. If he wanted to wield the power of the heavenly Tao, the great mediums should respect him, but they wouldn't be careless when it came to scheming, because he was a statue that accepted worship on behalf of the heavenly Tao. All beings worshipped God, but they didn't worship the statue made of clay or wood. If the statue had a will and wanted to announce the oracle on behalf of God, all beings would only laugh and ignore it. It was even more so for the great mediums. Many of them even regarded themselves as beings equal to the great Tao. It was impossible for them to worship the heavenly Tao, let alone the godhead of the heavenly Tao and the statue of a god. They only acknowledged the selflessness of the heavenly Tao. A procession of about 100 people surrounded the dragon carriage. Fan Wujia sat on the left side of the carriage. Shui, Tu, and Wu Sheng sat on the driver's seat, and Yuan Yu sat on the right. Little Qing didn't even have a place to sit, so she could only stand beside Fan Wujia like a servant. It wasn't that there was no space on the carriage. The dragon carriage could be big or small. When it was small, it seemed like it could only seat 2 people, but in reality it was no smaller than a world. It could fit as many people as it wanted. But how could a little demon spirit like little Qing dare to sit on the carriage of Saint Mother of Mountly? She only dared to stand, although the Saint Mother was kind and gentle, and she could be said to be approachable to her disciples and subordinates. There were rules in the palace, and she allowed her subordinates to be lawless. River Styx, on the other hand, had this tendency. He didn't care about etiquette, but he liked his subordinates to be lawless. The more active the test subject, the easier it was to be surprised. It was like observing a monkey doing an experiment. Compared to a lifeless monkey, a lively monkey was of more value to observe. The Shui Tu King sat on the driver's seat of the dragon carriage, driving it. He felt very uncomfortable among the procession of processions. It wasn't that Shui Tu hadn't seen such processions before. Speaking of which, the grandeur of immortals was boundless. In the era of immortals, the prestige of the Taoist monarchs was countless times more solemn than in the primitive era. In the primitive era, the golden immortals were just running errands. But in the future, the Taoist monarchs could be said to be in control of the universe. What was a procession of 100 people? When the future Taoist monarchs went on patrol, they would cover the sky and the sun because of their pride, and they would use the lives of a world. There were billions of them. But compared to Saint Mother of Mount Lee's procession, the standard might not be extraordinary, and it was more low-key, but the level was boundlessly high. Those heavenly generals and goddesses, Herculean immortal heroes, each of them had a cultivation that was not inferior to the Shui Tu King. Being surrounded by a group of heavenly generals and goddesses with the characteristics of Dara and Tai Dao fruit, Shui Tu naturally felt uneasy. The key was that the demonic sect was different from the mystic door. The mystic door was surrounded by such a procession, and naturally had an extraordinary aura. The demonic sect would think, how are we going to kill our way out when we fall out with them later? Shui Tu was shrouded by so many powerful auras. He instinctively adjusted his state and considered the worst-case scenario. He was vaguely hostile to these auras. Under the cover of so many powerful auras, he naturally felt like there was a dagger on his back. He couldn't sit still. Sometimes he would turn to this side, and sometimes he would turn to that side. His posture was ugly, but from the perspective of an ambush, this ugly posture could ensure that when the female generals attacked, Shui Tu could attack smoothly. Ajadi was a sword cultivator, unlike Shui Tu, who instinctively covered up his weaknesses and pursued a flawless qi dynamic. A sword cultivator had always used a sword to break all techniques, and never considered if he had any flaws. As long as he killed the enemy before he found one, he would have no flaws. Therefore, under the shroud of over 100 primordial immortals, Shui Tu kept changing his posture to make himself flawless. Ajadi, on the other hand, was focused, and his qi dynamic was on the verge of exploding. He was as stiff as a wooden chicken, his hand pressed on his sword, and his body was as stiff as a bowstring. Therefore, when the procession headed towards the heaven court, the cultivators and immortals along the way were not surprised. Instead, they saw 2 people sitting on the dragon chariot. One was twisting his body in an ugly posture, and the other was as stiff as a wooden chicken. Shui Tu looked like a boneless ADHD, while Wu Sheng was as stiff as a zombie. The passing cultivators couldn't help but look askance. Some covered their mouths and snickered, while others shook their heads and clicked their tongues. Yuan sat in the chariot. These primordial immortals were still a threat to Shui Tu and the others, But to him, they were nothing. Brahma Wu Jia was even more at ease. Not only was he not nervous, he even felt a sense of security, because these divine generals were like his Tao soldiers, turned into a part of his power by Saint Mother of Mountly. Sitting among them, he was more like the emperor of a celestial dynasty, augmenting Brahma, Wu, Jia's great Tao with their powers. The dragon chariot was extremely fast, and in just a few months they had arrived at the East Pole. In the vast East Sea, there was a huge island the size of a continent, and on it a divine tree stood tall in the sky, piercing through the clouds. The divine tree was so huge that each branch and leaf seemed to be holding up a world, and it was too shocking to use any words to describe it. They arrived at the East Sea, and as they got closer and closer to the huge island, the divine tree gradually filled their sight, turning into a borderless wall. The East Pole World Tree can reach the heavens. Yuan stared at the divine tree that seemed like a universe. Compared to the seedling they saw in Mahasvara, this world tree truly surpassed the comprehension of Tao Lords or even primordial immortals. Only a grand heavenly immortal would be able to see its full appearance. Such a being could even be said to have stepped into Dara, but it was not recognized as a being with all of Dara's characteristics. It was one of the most powerful connate spirit roots, and it could be said to be a chaos fiend god that had lost its connate, inextinguishable spirit light, the unrecognized Lord of Dara. Countless living beings lived on the world tree, and there were even many powerful celestial dynasties that occupied the branches and leaves of the tree as their territory, killing each other for territory. Countless cultivators and celestial immortals were as dense as ants, climbing up the world tree. They had to pass through the vast immortal ground before they could reach the end and step into the heavenly realm. At the top of the world tree was the eastern sky, another vast heavenly realm. Reaching the central great sky was no easier than becoming a Tao Lord. A mortal that could climb the world tree to the sky was enough to become an immortal, and at least a celestial immortal. If they could reach the great sky, they would at least become a Tao Lord or a golden immortal. This world tree is a universe. If I didn't see it with my own eyes, it would be hard to imagine that such an existence exists in the world. Fan Wujia sighed. The known area of the heavenly realm sea in the future is only a world tree. The chaos wasteland was broken. What kind of change could break the vast chaos wasteland into such a narrow place as the heavenly realm sea? Yuan Yu shook his head. The heavenly realm sea is vast and boundless. What you know is only a small part of it. The true world sea may not have revealed its full appearance. Do we still have to go up? Shuet too hesitated. Even if the dragon chariot is fast, it will take decades to climb such a high world tree, right? It took us nearly 5 months to walk from Mount Li to Zifu continent, and this is with the dragon chariot's ability to travel through space. How did Celestial Emperor Dong Hua bring DZ Mu and the others to the celestial heavens so quickly? Dara's ability cannot be measured with common sense. Yuan Yu smiled. If I want to go to the celestial heavens, I have a way to get there in an instant. For Dara, sometimes traveling through time is more convenient than traveling through space. The chaos wasteland is so big that even with Dara's power, it will take him nearly a Yuan Hui to go one round. But if Dara does not interact with the outside world, the time of the outside world does not exist for Dara. So, no matter how much time Dara spends, it can be regarded as non-existent. Shuet too clicked his tongue. The dragon chariot also has this ability. Otherwise, how can we go to the purple mansion of Mount Li in a month? And the gates of hell? Although we don't spend much time in the netherworld, the heavenly realm, the netherworld, and the primordial world have independent time sequences. In other words, the time of these 3 places is relatively independent and has no meaning to each other. Only when we travel through the 3 realms and pass through the gates of hell and the South Heaven Gate will there be a relatively orderly time sequence. Therefore, from the world tree to the sky, be it a few Yuan Hui or an instant, it's all possible. It just depends on when the South Heaven Gate registers you. One of the most important responsibilities of the celestial heavens is to coordinate the time sequence of the three realms. Back then, when the Magi and demons divided the world, demon gods often came down to the primordial world. In just a few days, dozens of Yuanhui would have passed when they returned to the celestial heavens, just in time for the unlucky experience of the great Magi-demon war. The demon who went with him rushed back to the demon court a step later. In the end, the demon court only passed a few days. Unless the great Magi-demon war is when the coupling between the heavenly realm and the primordial world is at its strongest, the Magi and demons do not even live in the same time sequence. The Emperor of Heaven has fixed the sky and sorted out the 4 seasons of yin and yang. It is not a symbol of falsehood. Instead, it has truly unified the time sequence of the 3 realms so that the sun, moon, and stars can operate in an orderly manner. After the heavenly courts are established, the 3 realms can determine the time sequence according to the operation of the sun, moon, and stars. However, even so, when we pass through the South Heaven Gate or the Gate of Hell, we still have to reorganize it. We will enter the world tree and pass through a special world that has no time sequence. We will climb to the top of the world tree and connect to the South Heaven Gate. Then, we will use the South Heaven Gate to determine our time. The time that we took to arrive at the Heaven Realm from the primordial world was completely determined by the South Heaven Gate. If the South Heaven Gate determines the time to be the next instant, then it will only take an instant. If the divine general guarding the gate determines the time to be thousands of years later, then we will enter the world tree and pass through the world without time sequence for thousands of years. That's why the goddess of Mount Li lent us the carriage. The dragon carriage soared into the sky and flew towards the highest point of the primordial world. It can also be independent of the time sequence of the primordial world and head to the heaven realm on its own. As long as we have the ability of Dara, or even the characteristics of the primordial Tao fruits Dara, we can control our own time sequence and not be controlled by the divine general guarding the South Heaven Gate. However, we will be rejected by the South Heaven Gate and unable to enter the Heaven Realm. That's why we need the goddess of Mount Li's help to pass through the South Heaven Gate and control our own time sequence. Yuan Yu said in a low voice. Chapter 1351. The dragon carriage drove into the builder tree. The towering builder tree was vast and boundless, carrying countless worlds. It was already towering beyond the Zifu continent. The closer the dragon carriage got to the builder tree, the smaller the scale of time and space. Just like the sapling of the builder tree in the realm of freedom, the closer it was to the builder tree, the larger the scale of time and space. The wheels of the dragon carriage spun, seeming to have unimaginable power. Gradually, in the sky in front of them, countless huge undulating mountains meandered like dragons, crisscrossing in the sky. Every mountain was unimaginably majestic. Eagles flew and fish dove in them, and countless creatures grew. This is the builder tree? Shui, Tu-King, was stunned for a moment and said in shock. Yuan Yu shook his head slightly. This is the bark of the builder tree. Every undulating mountain is just a fold of the builder tree's bark. You have to climb this thing to reach the southern heavenly gate. Ajadi clicked his tongue and said, Can anyone really climb it? The top of the builder tree supports the 9 heavens. The sun, moon, Milky Way, and stars seem to come out of it. Its crown supports the sky, and the countless leaves on the top of the builder tree are the countless continents of the eastern heavens. Billions of stars float in the Milky Way, converging to form the Milky Way, flowing on the crown of the builder tree. Between its branches, the Milky Way lingers. Above the leaves, many burning stars and stars that are completely condensed from profound ice rise and fall. That is the sun and moon of the big and small celestial continents in the eastern heaven realm. The sun, moon, and stars condense into divine water, flowing in the Milky Way and turning into rain to nourish the builder tree. Only the Milky Way flowing from the starry sky has such great power to nourish such a great existence. The eastern heavens can be said to be the sky that is supported by the crown of the builder tree. The builder tree they saw was only a small part of this great existence, but through Yuan Yu's description, everyone could imagine this vast picture scroll. They were immersed in it for a long time, speechless. The dragon chariot flew toward the world tree. Halfway through, everyone felt that the traction force from the ground had disappeared. Or rather, it was in a state of balance. The dragon chariot lifted slightly, and the 4 dragons began to adjust their positions. They flew upward, and the dragon chariot gradually tilted and became perpendicular to the ground. At that moment, a traction force came from the world tree that was parallel to it. Fan Wu Jia turned back to look. At this moment, the Zifu continent where the world tree had taken root was like a heavenly curtain hanging down from above their heads, blocking their backs. The primeval continent was like a boundless curtain unfolding behind it. It was just like the first time they saw the world tree. 2 boundlessly wide dara vertically crossed each other, forming an angle in front of them. Fan Wu Jia stared blankly at the scene, then said in a daze, "Say, do you think the prehistoric continent is also a gigantic world tree?" When Yuan Yu heard this, he also turned around and looked at the majestic Zifu continent and the even vaster azure ocean behind him. He was silent. The vastness of the great wasteland. This was the first time Fan Wu Jia had a direct impression of it in his mind. How could he not be shocked by it? This ancient land, this vast and boundless world, was called the Great Wasteland. The dragon chariot sped forward and began to enter the void. Above the world tree was a place that was not inferior to any other world, and it was unknown how many kingdoms of living beings there were. Although they could also ascend to the southern heavenly gate by following this road, the journey was long and difficult. Even if they rode on a dragon chariot or rode on a flood dragon, it would still be daunting. They also needed to enter the world tree, the world that was isolated from the great wasteland, and the concept of time was lost. Only then could they cross such a terrifying distance. Legend has it that the human race of the eastern heavens came from the great East Sea of the great wasteland. They ascended the world tree and entered the heavenly realm. They lived and multiplied in the eastern heavens 120,000 celestial continents. Most of their ancestors were from the human race of the Zifu continent. This world tree is extremely ancient, and it is said that when the dragon race dominated the East Sea, this tree already existed. The demon race ascended Mount Buzhou, found the heavenly realm, and established the immemorial demon court. They called themselves gods. But in truth, after the chaotic god fiend died, the Khanate gods were born. They ascended Mount Buzhou and discovered the heavenly realm. Then they moved their tribes and descendants from the great wasteland land into the heavenly realm. The descendants of these Khanate gods called themselves demons. The region they entered from Mount Buzhou was the central Great Sky. Great Sky is huge, and even if the immemorial demon court multiplied to a huge number, they weren't able to occupy it completely. The heavenly realm was too rich and beautiful. So the Khanate gods brought their descendants, servants, slaves, and subjects to the heavenly realm. The core of their rule was shifted to Great Sky, and they didn't care about the great wasteland land anymore. Even so, only after the immeasurable calamity did the demon race truly discover the other regions around Great Sky. At this time, the dragon race of the 4 seas had already ascended to heaven sky through the world tree in the East Sea. The birds of the south flew above the undying volcanoes, and with their natural flying ability, they also entered flame sky. The west received Juanti and the other 2 experts, and they also spread their teachings on Mount Lingshan, turning the West Haotian into a pure land of Buddhism. The North Kuan Peng leaped up from the North Underworld, carrying numerous northern demons into Shantian. There was also the Northeast Min Sky, the Northwest Dark Sky, the Southwest Vermilion Sky, the Southeast Yang Sky. These 9 heavens were known as the 9 fields of heaven. Thus, the immemorial demon court attacked the dragon race in the east, the Feather Race in the south, the Westling Buddhist Kingdom, and the North Kuan Pong. The northern demon submitted, and the Kuan Pong entered the court as the demon master. The Western Buddhist Kingdom didn't dare to take another step east, and they received Juanti and trapped him in the west. They also made the Dragon Race and the Feather Race submit to the demon court in name, and they became powerful vassals under the immemorial demon court. However, just as the demon race was indulging in the richness and beauty of the heaven realm, a new force was rising in the primordial world that they had abandoned. After the death of the great god Pangu, his blood essence and turbid chi combined to give birth to 12 great divinities. They were born with infinite divine power. These great divinities used the remaining essence of Pangu to create many living beings. They were the 12 ancestral witches. What they created was the witch race. The 12 ancestral witches led the witch race and gradually occupied the primordial world when the demon race shrank their power and expanded in the heaven realm. Their footprints began to slowly expand to the entire primordial world, and because of this, they clashed with the remaining forces of the demon race in the primordial world. The conflict between the witch race and the demon race also arose. The demon race, which had shrunk their power and maintained their lowest existence in the primordial world, was no match for the witch race. Soon, the witch race ruled the primordial Dara. Hundreds of millions of tribes and unimaginable divine power allowed the witch race to create a glorious civilization that was not inferior to the immemorial demon court. When the witch race entered Mount Bujo, the immemorial demon court could not tolerate it anymore. The proud demon race thought of themselves as gods and thought that the immemorial demon court would rule the entire universe. The first great Magi demon war broke out in Mount Bujo. Thus, the vast history of the 3 great Magi demon wars began. Yuan Yu slowly recounted the ancient history of Mount Bujo and the World Tree. They had long been linked to the fate of the entire primordial world. In the ancient legends, one could become a god if they ascended to the heaven realm. The ancient legends of the dragon race, the phoenix race, the demon race, and the witch race seem to confirm this legend. Countless tribes, divine kingdoms, and countless races traveled through mountains and rivers in order to become gods. They experienced countless difficulties and dangers, crossed the East Sea, and came to the Zifu continent. After generations of sacrifice and hard work, they began to climb the world tree. How could these mortals reach the height of the world tree? Therefore, generation after generation, their children gave birth to grandchildren, and their grandchildren gave birth to children. Their descendants climbed the towering world tree endlessly, looking forward to ascending to the crown of the world tree, the eastern heaven, and becoming gods. Some of the descendants of these people succeeded in ascending to the heavens and became the celestials of the eastern heavens, 120,000 immortal continents. Some were still wasting their time on the road, living in this vast world tree. This was the most spectacular wonder of the world tree. The ancient road of the world tree, the path to the heavens. Who knows how many ancient races lived on the ancient road of Jimmu? How many old monsters from the primordial era? How many famous divine dynasties and nations? Yuan Yu sighed with emotion, especially after Mount Bujo collapsed and cut off the path to great heaven. The world tree became the only hope of these climbers, making the situation on the world tree more and more complicated. Fan Wu Jia continued. It is said that the great Xia dynasty and the great Shang dynasty had also sent out huge fleets of ships to the sea to climb the world tree. They wanted to go to the great heavenly court to pay their respects to their ancestors and have an audience with the ancient emperor of the human race. Therefore, the road outside is not only difficult to walk, but also hiding many old monsters. The world tree is incomparably majestic, and it is the favorite place of fierce beasts and divine creatures. It is said that there are eastern green dragons that suppress the 4 poles at the top of the world tree, and there are countless like Ba Serpent and Xianglu. Back then, The dragon clan of the Four Seas occupied the Zifu continent, and they probably didn't even know how many dragon species there were on the world tree. Moreover, the Jemu tree is extremely high. Many of the mighty figures of the celestial sect of wonders also like to establish their sects here. The divine kingdom of the human clan of the Magi tribe even treats climbing the Jemu tree as a grand sacrifice and ceremony. It is still faster and safer to use Senior Sister's name and this shortcut opened by the heavenly court. Unfortunately, because of this, I missed the strange world above the world tree. Fan Wu Jia held his head with his hands behind his back and said, "If not for the fact that time is tight, I really want to climb the world tree one step at a time and see the strange scenery and the countless races above the world tree." Yuan Yu interrupted him, pointed to the front, and said, "We have arrived at the southern heavenly gate." Everyone looked up and saw countless auspicious clouds and immortal lights in front of them. A huge gate was opened, and countless stars floated in the void. Some were close, some were far, some were thick, some were thin. The ones close were like mountains, the ones far away were like basins and plates, and the ones further away were like the lower world. What they saw was a sea of stars formed by countless light spots. Among the countless stars, there were Venus that was entirely made of metal and reflected a faint cold light, Mercury that was formed by the gathering of true water, Earth's core that looked like lava, and stars that were formed by true fire. On some of the stars, they could even see buildings and mountains. The starlight emitted by the boundless starlight merged with the light emitted by the prehistorical sun and the moon, turning into a flowing river of light. In the river, the clear energy from the 9 heavens condensed into a kind of water that was extraordinarily light, carrying countless stars and rotating. Fan Wujian knew that this was the celestial river. The celestial river meandered through the 9 heavens, and it was extremely vast. The clear chi that fell from the 9 heavens turned into the 9 heavens' weak water, which formed the main body of the celestial river. The celestial river weak water was light and spiritual, as if it had no weight. If an ordinary immortal were to fall into it, they would drown. The celestial river was extremely vast, and there were many different valleys. In the star heaven, because the sun, moon, and stars gathered, they would condense into the triple light divine water, which made the invisible and colorless 9 heavens weak water, mixed with the triple light divine water. It was like a river of light where countless colorful lights gathered. The stars in the star heaven were washed into the celestial river, forming this section of the celestial river, which looked like a beautiful scene of countless stars flowing. These stars revolved in the weak water, and the stellar energy of the rotation of the stars repelled the weak water, forming bubbles that surrounded the stars. The atmosphere of the stars was filled with normal vital energy, so they could survive in the stars and not drown in the 9 heavens' weak water. In the eastern part of the celestial river, there were branches and leaves of the builder tree that absorbed the nourishment of the triple light, divine water, and the 9 heavens' weak water. The builder tree's branches and leaves had life force flowing on them, and the vital energy would not be dissolved by the weak water, so they could survive. These were the celestial continents that floated in the celestial river. Occasionally, these celestial continents would capture stars, and the leaves that surrounded the builder tree would rise and fall like the sun and moon on a continent. Thus, the celestial continents became a paradise in the celestial river. The southern heavenly gate was in the middle of the Milky Way, sitting at the boundary between the star heaven and the celestial sky, hanging high on the eastern branch of the builder tree. Countless colorful lights gathered and flowed into the gate. A celestial being with 3 vertical eyes on his forehead, 2 on each side of his forehead, and 2 on his face, making a total of 9 eyes, stood at the entrance of the southern heavenly gate. His 9 divine eyes looked in all directions, inspecting the celestials that passed by. The celestials were either pushing huge stars or riding on flying ships, entering through the southern heavenly gate. As the dragon chariot approached the southern heavenly gate, Yuan Yu quickly tugged at Fan Wu Jie's sleeve and said in a low voice, "Quick, start the ceremonial battle. Whether we can scare the nine-eyed celestial being and sneak into the gate depends on this. The heaven still has to give face to my senior apprentice sister. Fan Wu Jia said confidently. Yuan Yu shook his head. Your senior apprentice sister is too low-key. Although the Ajati matriarch is the goddess of the divine path and the ancient god emperor, she is old and has a strong reputation. But after your senior apprentice sister became the goddess of Mount Lishan, she has been living in seclusion. Her frequent visits to the heaven was something that happened during the era of the Emperor Heaven before the Eons. The immortal general guarding the gate might not recognize her. Fan Wu Jie frowned and said, the ones guarding the gates of hell are Shentu and Yulei, and the southern heavenly gate is an important place in the heaven. The immortal general guarding the gate won't be using someone who knows nothing, right? Yuan Yu smiled and said, every emperor has his own ministers. Guarding the gate, although it is not a noble job, it must be the master's confidant. Otherwise, it would be terrible if they opened the gate to thieves. Nowadays, the power struggle in the heaven is fierce, and there have been many people in charge. Loyalty is important, but ability is secondary. Fan Wu Jia still felt that something was wrong. If that is the case, how can the 10 Palace Yanluo tolerate Shentu and Yulei? Yuan Yu spread out his hands and said, that's why I didn't see how angry those two were when they mentioned the Yama kings of the 10 palaces. And when we went in to cause trouble for the Yama kings of the 10 palaces, the two of them were so happy to open the door. When we caused trouble and killed the Yama kings of the 10 palaces, they even helped us keep a lookout. It is not that the 10 Palace Yanluo does not want to change them. It is that they cannot. Fan Wu Jia heard this and unfolded the ceremonial flag. Countless auspicious clouds gathered and celestial light shone brightly. Lianhua flowers bloomed above the celestial river. The Lianhua carried the dragon carriage and opened a path. In the treasure vase, the innate spiritual root gave off a mysterious fragrance. In the ceremonial flag, countless heavenly maidens played drums and sang. In an instant, the entire southern heavenly gate was heard. The southern heavenly gate was the most famous heavenly gate in the heavenly court. In fact, the eastern heavenly gate on top of the world tree should be the eastern heavenly gate. That nine-eyed celestial being had noticed the dragon chariot from afar. He opened his 9 divine eyes and observed carefully. He was experienced and knowledgeable, unlike the 2 country bumpkins, Xue Tu and Wu Sheng, who made a fuss when they saw the dragon chariot. The celestial emperors of the heavenly court had entered and exited through this door many times, and the dragon chariot would only be grander and more luxurious, although this dragon chariot could not be compared to the celestial emperors. It was more than enough. The nine-eyed celestial pondered and said, which divine monarch from the lower realm does this carriage belong to? If it is a divine monarch from the lower realm, why doesn't he have any subordinate gods? And although this ceremonial flag is grand, it is too small. Could it be the divine monarch from the mystic door? Low profile and prefers peace? I usually let him pass and not offend him. But Imperial Emperor Xiong just ordered me to guard the gate and not let anyone of unknown origin enter the heavenly court. As he thought of this, the nine-eyed celestial went up to him and asked, may I know which divine monarch's carriage belongs to? Can you show me your official document? Inside the carriage, Fan Wu Jie and Yuan Yu looked at each other and thought he really came. Fan Wu Jie lifted the curtain and stepped out of the carriage, saying, I am Saint Mother Li Shan's junior brother. I was invited by a good friend to ride senior sister's carriage to the heavenly court. The nine-eyed celestial saw that it was a celestial he did not know, and his brows furrowed even more. He hesitated and said, so you are Saint Mother Li Shan's junior brother, but divine monarch has been to the heavenly court before. So how could you have a good friend? Please forgive me, divine monarch, but I have a duty to fulfill, so I have to ask. Fan Wu Jie nodded and smiled. Of course. He explained, my good friend is Imperial Emperor Donghua's youngest son, Prince Mu. I heard that he caused trouble in the lower realm and was captured by the Imperial Emperor, so I came to mediate. It's Prince Mu. The nine-eyed celestial was even more shocked. When Prince Mu caused trouble in the primordial universe, he had heard about it, and the messenger sent by Imperial Emperor Xiang had hinted to him to stop anyone related to this matter. How could he not know that this person in front of him was the target of Imperial Emperor Ziyang's interception? But this matter was related to the Heavenly Court's internal strife, and he was not Imperial Emperor Ziyang's man. Usually, when the Imperial Emperor did something insignificant, it was fine for him to lift his hand and relieve himself. Now that the Heavenly Court was in a fight, how could he dare to interfere? The nine-eyed celestial was caught between a rock and a hard place. While he was complaining in his heart, his actions became more cautious, and his words became more hesitant. Fan Wujie and Yuan Yu looked at each other, both of them having the same thought in their minds. Just as I thought. At this time, a giggle came from beside them. It was another carriage with a grand procession that had arrived at the southern heavenly gate. A lady was riding on the phoenix carriage, and she lifted the curtain to look at Fan Wujie. Her eyes brightened when she saw the 4 majestic flood dragons, and she looked at the carriage closely. Suddenly she smiled and said, "Isn't this Saint Mother of Mount Li's carriage?" Saint Mother of Mount Li has always been close to Her Highness. Why is she being troubled by the celestial guarding the gate? Let's go and take a look. When the phoenix carriage came close, she said, "You uncouth gatekeeper, you're such a wretched person. You even dare to block the Holy Mother's carriage. Is it because the Holy Mother's face isn't big enough? Or is it because no one listens to our Empress' words?" The nine-eyed celestial saw her approaching, and he quickly bowed and said, "I dare not. It's just that Imperial Emperor Ziyang has ordered me to guard the gate. This little brother looks unfamiliar, so I am a little hesitant. Since sister is the guarantor, I will let him pass." The lady smiled and said, "I was wondering who was so powerful, so it was Imperial Emperor Ziyang. You don't have to put on a sad face. If he blames me, I will take responsibility for you. With Her Highness, Imperial Emperor Ziyang won't be able to say anything bad." When she finished, she turned and smiled at Fan Wujie, and the phoenix carriage led them into the southern heavenly gate. Fan Wujie's heart was filled with doubts. It's true that Senior Marshall's sister has a great reputation here, but to be able to be friends with Senior Marshall's sister, to not give face to Monarch Ziyang, and to be treated with such respect by the god generals guarding the gate. Where exactly is this lady from? Her Highness seems to have great authority in the celestial court, even more so than Imperial Emperor Ziyang. I wonder how she compares to Imperial Emperor Donghua. What's the background of that empress? Chapter 1352. After the dragon chariot entered the southern heavenly gate, Fan Wujie drove the dragon chariot to stop the chariot. He walked out of the chariot and stood on the frame of the chariot. He bowed to the lady and said, "I am the new junior brother that Saint Mother of Mount Li has acknowledged. This time I borrowed senior sister's chariot to bring my friends, to visit my friends in the celestial heavens, but we were stopped outside the heavenly gate. Your friend is Celestial Emperor Dong, Hua's disciple, Prince Mu?" The lady covered her mouth and laughed. "He has caused quite a commotion. I have heard a lot about him in the lower bound. He is a prince, but he is willing to fall in love with a little demon spirit from the lower bound." When the women in the tribe heard about it, they all said that he dared to love and hate, and was an affectionate man. His reputation is not bad, but it is a pity that Celestial Emperor Donghua is very strict. Your friend has been captured, and he will not have a good time. Fan Wujie quickly said, "I still don't know sister's name. I will repay you when I return, and I will repay you for protecting me today." The lady stood on the chariot and looked at Fan Wujie. She thought, what a handsome young man. She had a good impression of him and smiled. "I am from the Yun family, and my name is Yin. Our families are old friends, and I used to visit Saint Mother of Mount Li often, but as I grew older I was busy with the affairs of the tribe, so I did not go there as often. I wonder when Saint Mother took in such a young junior brother." The lady rolled her eyes. "Was it you who tricked Saint Mother into taking in a disciple on behalf of your master?" Fan Wu Jia smiled bitterly. "It was fate in the previous life, and Saint Mother thought highly of me. I don't know the inside story." The lady didn't dare to tease him anymore. She said in shock, "Little brother is the reincarnation of a powerful cultivator?" "Saint Mother, yes. Saint Mother has another body, and her family is huge. She has many junior brothers and sisters in her sect, and many of them died because of a calamity. If you are really Saint Mother's junior brother, then you have a great background." The heavenly general guarding the gate didn't know about Saint Mother's other background, or he wouldn't have dared to stop little brother. Although she said that the woman knew that there were many people in the generation of the goddess Wudong of the Jia sect. Many palace guests who had heard of the Tao in the Bayou Palace all claimed to be disciples of the Jia sect. The Grand Master of Heaven was broad-minded and recognized them. In the Jia school, there were 3 religions and 9 schools. The good and the bad were intermingled. Most of the disciples of the Jia school were of the same generation as her. She could bear the responsibility of her identity. However, she had never expected that this younger brother of hers, Fan Wu Jia, would actually be the eldest Shixiang of the Jia sect. Otherwise, how would she dare to call him elder sister? She would have long considered herself as a junior. Could eldest senior brother Duo Bao compare to Shiji, Lu Yu, Lu Huan, and Li Ping? The disciples of the Jia school were famous for having a wide range of acquaintances. That was why Fan Wu Jia addressed her as elder sister. Even though she considered herself a junior of the Holy Mother of Mount Li, she still calmly accepted this because of the customs of the Jia school. Otherwise, if the disciples of the Jia school traveled all over the world and called the rogue cultivators and demons brothers, wouldn't these people be one generation lower than the Grand Master of Heaven and become the seniors of many mighty figures of the mystic door? The reason why the primeval Lord of Heaven was so ruthless to the Jia school was not necessarily because of the Jianghu customs of the Jia school. How could the primeval Lord of Heaven look down on those lowly people, rogue cultivators and demons? His junior brother, the Grand Master of Heaven, took in messy disciples which had already made the primeval Lord of Heaven very dissatisfied. How could those people with scales and horns be brothers with people like Guangchengzi and Qi Jingzi? Although the mystic door was vast, the rules were strict. These disciples of the Jia school had the habits of the Jianghu, and many of them were not good people, which ruined the atmosphere of the mystic door. The great war of deification that year was mostly because of the intention to clean up the mystic door. In terms of cultivation, Guangchengzi was the number 1 person of the mystic door. In the past, he was of the same generation as the Emperor of Heaven, and he was even the teacher of the Emperor of Heaven for a period of time. He was the most outstanding person among the 4 senior brothers of the mystic door. In the Tai era, when Yuan Yu rushed to the Purple Cloud Palace, he had seen the bell ringer of the Purple Cloud Palace from afar. A person like River Styx naturally did not need other people to lead and could enter the Purple Cloud Palace directly. A Grand Luo like Yuan Yu required Guangchengzi's guidance to enter the palace. As such, putting aside those with great divinities, Guangchengzi would be the one to decide if anyone below that could be a guest of the Purple Cloud Palace. Yuan Yu being able to obtain such a fortuitous encounter was all thanks to the Grand Senior Brother of the Celestial Sect. Yuan Yu had always said that he was a person of the mystic door because of Guangchengzi's tacit approval. He was allowed to be brought into the Purple Cloud Palace by Zhao Gongming. Therefore, even though Yuan Yu and Zhao Gongming had the best relationship, Guangchengzi was his guide. Yuan Yu whispered into Fan Wu Jia's ear, "She's actually from the Sea Celestial clan." "That's true. You saw her as a woman, but I saw Xian." Yuan Yu's right hand drew a Xian divine character. On the left and right, 2 strings in the shape of an S intertwined, forming a pattern that looked like a double helix or a gourd. This is the divine character of Xian. One yin and one yang are called the Tao, and the yin and yang string pattern is called Xian. This is the human race's saint body. It's different from us qi cultivators. The human race's saint body only needs to grow naturally. The saint body originates from the sorcerer race, and once the saint body is achieved, one will be a great sorcerer. Of course, there are strong and weak saint bodies. The strong ones are like the direct descendants of the 12 ancestral sorcerer tribes. The saint body is a person who has 1 foot in Dara. This is only the innate ability of the great sorcerer. If it's the great sorcerer's body, there are many terrifying people like Xingtian, Qiyu, Hou-Yi, and Quafu. They made a breakthrough in their saint body through postnatal cultivation and created their own unique body. That's why there are the Xingtian saint body, Jili saint body, sun-shooting saint body, and sun-chasing saint body. Of course, the terrifying people who have the characteristics of Dara after the saint body are also rare in the sorcerer tribe. It must be the direct descendants of the 12 ancestral sorcerer tribes. Only the leaders of the ancestral sorcerer tribes have such a bloodline. Now that the sorcerer tribe has merged with the human bloodline, it's almost impossible to see such a natural saint. The bloodline of the 12 ancestral sorcerer tribes has also merged with the human bloodline to form the 12 saint bodies. This saint body, which is mysterious and plain in my eyes, should be the Xian saint body of the 12 saint bodies. The Xian saint body. The men call it the Xian saint body, and the women call it the Su saint body. The Xian saint body, the Xian saint body. I think I know where she came from. The Xian saint body, the Yun saint body. I think I know where she came from. The Xian saint body, the Yun saint body. Yuan, you did not say it directly, but changed the topic and talked about the origin of the Xian saint body. Yun saint, that's the name of the Swerin saint body. Could she be a descendant of the Sui sovereign? The descendants of the Sui sovereign have the surname Feng, and they are divided into 10 tribes. The first is the Tianxiong tribe, the second is the Tianqi tribe, the third is the Tianyi tribe, the fourth is the Hexiong tribe, the fifth is the Tianyang tribe, the sixth is the Tianyin tribe, the seventh is the Hou bird tribe, the eighth is the Hou insect tribe, the ninth is the Thunder Rain tribe, and the 10th is the Tian sovereign tribe. Fan Wu Jie said in surprise. The 10 tribes with the surname Feng are one of the origins of the human bloodline, and they are too old. The Huashu clan, Niwa clan, Fushi clan, Taihao clan, Xiaohao clan, Heshu clan, Chou-Yi clan, Luai's clan, Panhu clan, and Yanzi clan were all from the Feng clan. Among them, the heavenly sovereign tribe has the Fushi celestial race, the descendants of Emperor Shi, the Leja celestial race, the Panhu celestial race, the Xiaohao celestial race, the Heavenyang celestial race, the Niwa celestial race, the Hexiong celestial race, the Swerin celestial race, and the Tianxiong celestial race. The surname Feng is the 10 tribes, the surname Ji is the Bai clan, and the surname Jiang is the Lais Han. They are the source of the human race's inheritance, the orthodox 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors. Fan Wu Jie's expression changed as he said, "Could that goddess be the divine Mother Empress Hua?" "Yes. My senior sister is a primitive person, one of the human ancestors. It's only natural that she's friends with Empress Hua." Yuan Yu knocked on Fan Wu Jie's head, shook his head, and said with a smile, "What are you thinking?" Although the Sui celestial race is indeed related to Empress Hua, I've already said that this lady has the sacred body of the human race, the pure maiden's sacred body. She's a mixed blood of human and shaman. Although the shaman race is also one of the origins of the human race, how can the descendants of Empress will have the bloodline of the shaman race? Maybe it's a marriage alliance, and her bloodline is mixed. Fan Wu Jie said stubbornly, "Although the most ancient tribes of the human race have mixed blood with the shaman race in order to inherit the orthodoxy of Pango and continue the legacy of the shaman race, other clans may have mixed blood, but only the Niwa celestial race didn't. Empress Hua created the human race which was the greatest pride of the Nuwa celestial race. So how could they mix the blood of the human race? What the Nuwa celestial race cultivated must be the purest and most profound inheritance of the divine body. She opened the divine treasures. So how could she walk the path of the great shaman with the sacred body? Otherwise, wouldn't it be a big joke for the Nuwa celestial race to become a great shaman? Although the shaman race has 12 ancestors of shaman, there are also factions among them. Dijiang, Hutu, and Candle Dragon are the 3 leaders among the ancestors of shaman. The relationship between Empress Wa, celestial race, and Lady Hutu is complicated. During the struggle to create the human race, the shaman race almost became one of the orthodox origins of the human race. Therefore, among the human race, any emperor's inheritance may have mixed blood of the shaman race. But only Empress Wa celestial race is impossible. The 10 tribes with the surname Fong are mostly pure blood of the human race. Among them, the one with the deepest connection with the shaman race is obvious, isn't it? Fan Wu Jie lowered his head and pondered for a moment. Suddenly, he raised his head and said, Yanzi clan. Yes, among the 12 ancestors of shaman, there is no Swearin clan, but Yanzi clan is one of them. If the surname Fong has the inheritance of the shaman race, it must be from the Yanzi clan. Swearin clan and Yanzi clan have a blood alliance, and they are called Hexiong clan. The surname Fong, Yanzi clan, must be the witch of Hexiong clan. She is surnamed Fong, Yanzi clan, Hexiong clan's Yanzi clan. Yuan nodded and said, although Yanzi is the ancient holy king of the human race, the ancestor of Shaman Yanzi clan is even more famous. Therefore, after Dijiang reincarnated into Yu Xiong and Shen Yuan became the emperor of heaven, in order to wash away the mark of the shaman race, the Yanzi clan changed its name to Yun clan and Yanzi clan with the other half of the Sui Huang bloodline as the source. The men are Yun, the women are Yanzi, and they are the Yanzi clan. That goddess is none other than the ancient holy king Yanzi clan's holy mother Yanzi, who made knots to record things. She is also one of the 12 ancestors of shaman, Yanzi ancestor Yanzi clan. The origin of the Xuanzu holy body is the Yanzi holy body. Back then, Holy Mother Yanzi rubbed her skin as a rope. Among them, a single strand is called Xian. 2 strands are combined as Zi, and 3 strands are combined as Suo, also known as Su. The ancestors of the human race were the first to record the Great Way with ropes. They tied knots to record the mysteries of the Great Way, the first cultivation method. Back then, the reason why the Supreme Old Man called the path of cultivation he created the mystic door was because the mystic door originated from the ancient ancestors who made knots to record things and explore the Great Way. Yuan, you wrote the word Xian in the void. 2 lines of yin and yang intertwined and knotted, revealing the original, simplest appearance of the Great Way. 1 yin and 1 yang, the Tao. Holy Mother Yanzi was the origin of the mystic door. So in the mystic door, the Holy Mother has a unique position. She is the ancient king of the human race, the orthodox source of the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors, and also the ancestor of the mystic door, known as the 9 heavens. Xian, woman. Fan Wu Jie's body trembled slightly, but he quickly calmed down. He murmured, so that goddess is the ancestral wizard Yanzi, the holy king of the human race, the Holy Mother Yanzi, the 9 heavens goddess of the mystic door. Senior sister really has a wide circle of friends. Such a big figure. You actually have a relationship. The 9 heavens goddess, also known as Xiandi, Wang Su, Su Nu, Xian Nu, Dianzi, was the person who taught the Emperor of Heaven how to cultivate, and the person who initiated the Emperor of Heaven in his cultivation. She was also the rumored spouse of the Emperor of Heaven, but she had a complicated relationship with the Sui sovereign. She was one of the 12 witches, the ancestor who created the path of cultivation during the era of ignorance of the human race, and Laozi inherited her legacy. Even the mystic door was named after the Holy Mother Yanzi. Fan Wujie could imagine how the founder of the mystic door, Laozi, had fumbled with the knotted rope when he first entered the Tao, exploring the mysteries of heaven and earth recorded by his ancestors, and leaving behind the mysterious words of the Door of Wonders. The Nine Heavens goddess was the ancestral master of the mystic door. In the human race, the Holy Mother Yenzi was the source of the three sovereigns, the teacher of the Yellow Emperor, the wife of the Sui sovereign, and the ancient female Saint King. The ancestral wizard Yenzi was one of the 12 witches of the witch race, the orthodox Panga lineage, and the source of the great Tao. Therefore, the bloodline she left behind was called the mystic sacred body, which was the orthodox of the human race, the orthodox of the witch race, the orthodox of the Panga lineage, and the celestial race of the heavenly court. Such a person, such a powerful person, not to mention a small Emperor Xiang. Even if she did not give face to Emperor Zhuanqiu, what could Zhuanqiu do? She was an ancestor. Yuan Yu and Fan Wu Jie smiled bitterly at each other. To them, she was also an ancestor. As a human, she was the source of the bloodline, the ancient Saint King, and they definitely had the bloodline of the Holy Mother Yenzi. And as a disciple of the mystic door, the Nine Heavens goddess was also the ancestral master of the mystic door, and a person of the same generation as the three pure ones. As the ancestral master who explored the Tao of cultivation before the mystic door and laid the foundation for the mystic door, she could not recognize the mystic door, but the mystic door had to recognize her. Only then did Fan Wujian know that Lao Ai was not trying to climb up the social ladder, but the Holy Mother Yenzi was just a friend of the Holy Mother of Mount Li. He smiled bitterly and said, "The heavenly court is indeed full of crouching tigers and hidden dragons. Our status is really not enough for them to see. The mystic sacred body is close to the Tao and is the most suitable body for the cultivation of the mystic door. The mystic door's Tao originally had that ancestral master laying the foundation. So this sacred body also contains the most essential foundation of the mystic door's Tao." Yuan Yu said with a bit of jealousy, "If I had the mystic sacred body back then." No, as long as I had a bit of it, and awakened a bit of the mystic sacred body's essence, the path of cultivation would not have been so bumpy. The mystic sacred body can form the mystic into the plane, the Tao of heaven and earth into the mystic, and it can operate the mysteries of heaven. The knot is the mystic, the plane, and the tribulation. Let's not talk about how the mystic sacred body grows. If it cultivates, it can form the mystic of life, also known as the spirit root, the spirit rope. All the tribulations in cultivation will be in the form of knots, tied to the mystic of life. By comprehending the knot, one can understand the ins and outs of the tribulations, borrow the tribulations to cultivate, and every time one knot is untied, one can understand many mysteries of the Tao, the mystic within the mystic, the gate of all wonders. After passing the mystic tribulations and untying the mystic knots, one can open the gate of all wonders, and all the magical powers and supernatural powers will be comprehended. The Tao of heaven and earth will be the teacher, and there is no need to rely on the orthodoxy of the predecessors. The mystic sacred body does not need any guidance, just one mystic, constantly creating tribulations, constantly tying knots on the mystic, and then untying them one by one to pass through the tribulations. Every time one passes through a tribulation, one knot will be untied, and one will comprehend a part of the Tao, from which one will comprehend countless truths, and the supernatural powers and magical powers will naturally form. Because of the convenience of cultivation, the tribulations can be turned into cultivation, which is why the mystic sacred body and the pure lady sacred body are called the gate of all wonders by us, the people of the mystic door. Legend has it that if the pure lady sacred body becomes a Tao companion, one can use the mystic of the pure lady to give birth to their own mystic, and the mystic will be split into two, one yin and one yang, two mystic with endless magical powers. Just by cultivating together, the tribulations can be completed, and the two sides can verify each other. One is yang, the other yin, and it is the shortcut to opening the mystic door, to understand the Supreme Tao. The method of cultivating together with the Pure Lady is called the Pure Lady Scripture, and it is said that it was created by the Emperor Heaven. How is it? Are you tempted? Yuan Yu smirked and raised his eyebrows at Fan Wu Jie. Fan Wu Jie swallowed his saliva and shook his head in panic. No, no, how would I dare? Fan Wu Jie did not know why, but he felt a faint palpitation in his heart, which made him shake his head in denial. The Supreme Profound Saint Body is the door of many wonders, but the Pure Lady Sacred Body is the door of profound youth. Yuan Yu smiled and said, This is the mystic door's dream of cultivating together, little Fan. Don't regret it if you miss it. Fan Wu Jie said with a righteous face, That sister is kind to me, and if we are in love with each other, it is the law of heaven and earth, the harmony of yin and yang. From the heart, it is the nature of human beings. But if for the sake of cultivation, I set up a trap and give birth to evil plans, then what kind of person would I, Fan Wu Jie, be? I am a despicable person. Fan Wu Jie said righteously, Wu Jie has no intention of asking for a phoenix. Please be careful with your words. Only then did Yuan Yu's face turn serious. He nodded and said with a smile, I have the intention of testing you, but I have underestimated you, little brother. Although the Pure Lady Sacred Body is mysterious and endless, it is one of the most suitable sacred bodies for the mystic door to cultivate. But how can it compare to the heart? If your heart wavers because of this, even 100 Pure Lady Sacred Bodies will not be able to help you achieve Dara. However, your sister's cultivation of the Pure Lady Sacred Body is actually close to great success. You can't underestimate her. Speaking of which, your abilities might not even be comparable to hers. 12 sacred bodies, 9 great divine treasures, 10 strong devil bodies. The ancient celestial heaven's path of cultivation is indeed not only limited to the mystic door. Look at the celestial heavens. There are countless saint, devil, god bodies. Divine arts are natural, and when the physiques reach adulthood, they are close to innate gods. In the era of the heavens in the future, the god body has declined, and the many special physiques can only be used as aids in cultivation, becoming a place to borrow strength to climb on the path of cultivation, and no longer have the wonderful use of the great Tao of the ancient times. Yuan Yu commented on the ancient great Tao that he had glimpsed on Lao Ai's body, simple and unsophisticated, compared to the ingenious use of the era of the heavens. Although simple and unsophisticated, it is closer to the great Tao. Chapter 1353 Fantasy World Transmigration Chapter 130 Weak water does not float. Purple sun patrols. Superficial brothers currently typing. Please wait a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to receive the latest update. Chapter 1354 Fantasy World Transmigration Chapter 131 Inescapable Net, Shadowless Blood God. Cannot be fooled currently typing. Please wait a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to receive the latest update. Chapter 1355 Fantasy World Transmigration Chapter 132 Undying Sea of Blood, Boundless Love, Capturing the Demon with one hand currently typing. Please wait a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to receive the latest update. Chapter 1356 Fantasy World Transmigration Chapter 133 The Tyrannical Monarch, The Origin of River Styx. Wu Jie's trump card currently in progress. Please wait for a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to receive the latest update.